Well, hello and welcome everyone to the AVGL Collegiate Championship here for summer of 2021. A lot of interesting things that are going to be going on today, and I'm excited to watch these two teams duke it out. But before that, my name's Gormizer, and I'd like to welcome you into the broadcast. We're slowly but surely getting things back started up here, I guess, for the latter half of the year. Mid-season's next Tuesday. Things are getting interesting. And of course, this week will be kind of like a last hurrah to the first half of Season 8. Joining me on the desk is going to be none other than Ryan Agro Bailey. And Agro, I mean, this is going to be a fun day. I'm excited.
It will be. You know, getting a chance to see these AVGL guys compete is always a lot of fun. You know, this is a pretty storied program that we've seen a lot of very good teams and very good players be able to come through and win some money for their college careers.
Yeah.
And so that's what it's all about. Excited to see what Georgia State's going to be able to do. That's obviously the team that, if you've been watching AVGL in the past, you should be pretty familiar with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, they have been around a while, is I guess maybe the easiest way to say it. But of course, we have to look at how exactly they got here. Now, a lot of colleges have been coming out to play. As mentioned, Georgia State has been one of those teams that has just been able to almost completely dominate it. They did have that 2-1 slip-up in the semifinals. Much easier here for quote-unquote Husky Gaming, Northeastern, whatever you want to call them. Husky Gaming's the name that they're going by, and so that's, of course, what we're going to give them. Plus, they've got the brilliant dog logo, and that's all that matters to me.
That's a good
and
dog.
Here's your rosters for these teams. Now, Husky Gaming, I recognize a couple of these names, like Cake and Cereal, definitely stand out to me. But if you look at Georgia State, pretty much every single person on this roster should ring a bell to you if you've watched any AVGL, because this is a team that has been playing pretty often, pretty commonly as well.
Yeah, very good success as well. I mean, sitting at 8-1 on the year, very impressive record for this squad. You mentioned Serial. I'm also looking at Not a Valve Game there in the jungle for Husky Gaming. He is a guy that I've seen around in the high-level rank scene in the past. So that having your premier players, in my mind, be in jungle and in support is usually a pretty good recipe for success. Those are the two roles that get to influence the map the most, spread out that influence across the entire match. In Georgia State, you know, basically in Strongest War God, their support and jungler specifically are going to have to be able to match that pressure.
Man, I just had a throwback. So 2019, I guess it was DreamHack when we were during SWC, there was the AVGL thing, and I remember watching this exact Georgia State roster get a championship there, and then I believe they did it again the summer of 2020. I believe, if I'm right about this one, it was second there in the fall of 2020, so this time trying to jump back up to the front. They were also at the top of the NACE when we did that way back when. So these guys have kind of been running the scene for a little while. We'll see if they can continue to hold on to that crown, or if Husky Gaming has something to say about that one here as we move into game number 1, picks and bans at least, for this draft. And this is where things, right now things are still in the realm of normal, right? Next week,
yes,
everything's going to change. It all breaks down and nobody knows anything anymore. But as of right now, there's 6 gods that you know need to be banned, and then 6 gods that you know need to be picked almost immediately.
Yeah, exactly. But things change at the AVGL level. I mean, it's not quite as organized, of course, as the SPL. I mean, that's the premier level of play. I think that, you know, right around SCC, SOC level is where you'd expect for these picks and bans and the plays to be, which is still, of course, a very high level of SMITE. But it does change how you want to pick and ban. You know, there are certain specialty gods that you might need to make sure you're taking away, or things like Athena that usually take a little bit of a higher execution to play around. Let's just take that away and ban it instead of trying to play against it.
Yeah, it's set Athena, as you had just mentioned. Gilgamesh getting banned out here alongside the Sobek, the Giannis, and the Tiamat on the other side. And looks like Soul is going to be the first one locked in. Soul, again, kind of just jumped into the meta. There was a little bit of a change with how her 2 procced. I think even more so of a change a little more recently. I can't remember if that's mid-season or if that was the last bonus update. It's starting to all get juggled in my head. But either way, she jumped into there and has kind of risen more as predominantly a mid laner lately, as opposed to what we used to see out of her.
Yeah, I'd expect this is going to Avant-Garde in the mid lane for Georgia State, because it just gives you guaranteed pressure. Your fight potential isn't too bad either, and then your late game objective scaling becomes really, really strong and very hard to fight against, as well as just your general team fight, because she's pretty good in those moments as well. Love pairing it with the Fafnir. I think that makes total sense. And now you've got this premier auto-attack-based backline of Soul Chiron that also does a lot of ability damage, but you can put threat on the Fire Giant, you can put good threat on towers and on Phoenixes. I think Georgia State has really concocted a very good start to this draft.
I mean, what, Sol, Fafnir, Chiron is maybe one of the deadliest trios you could get in SMITE right now, period.
Yep.
I mean, Coerce is just going to be so easy for both of those. It's an easy target to throw that onto. And then you also get the options to make it a team-wide thing later on, so that's going to make things a little more interesting. But not coming away with nothing. Cucullin, Rygen, Dan Zabro on the other side. All premier picks. Dan Zabro, more recently than anything, I mean, the last couple of weeks of play we saw from the Pro League, Panda Cat's just slamming this any chance he gets. And notably, he was doing it the most against this Chiron.
It's definitely a matchup that he liked in particular, but are Northeastern in Husky Gaming going to be able to play around that dual lane the exact same way that Jade Dragon's team was doing it for Panda Cat, where they were consistently sending gank pressure over there with things like Mercury? We're seeing their last pick coming through at the very last end. The jungler, I should say, is their last pick. So Not a Valve Game is getting a good opportunity to see the entirety of the draft here from Georgia State before he locks in what he wants.
Well, you get rid of things like the Tsukiyomi as well as the Ratatoskr, the Raven burned off. So most of the junglers kind of eked out. Nemesis is going to have to be the route that Georgia State goes for. Along with that, Osiris, something that most notably to me at least is in the SCC in Europe. A lot of, specifically Deathwalker loves playing this. We've seen him come through. And you called it, I mean, if you look at this Northeastern draft, that is absolutely a Jade Dragons draft. Like, that is straight out of the Pro League. I could be watching the playoffs right now.
Yeah, very similar to that. I don't know if Mike's playing Xingqian a whole lot, but other than that, I mean, it feels very much like a Jade Dragons draft. And I want to see Not a Valve Game be as active as Sam often is on drafts like this. Gank that dual lane in particular, try and set this Chiron behind, and let your Danzaburo try and run away with the game. The good news here, if you're the Husky Gaming, is that Georgia State does not have a lot of hard crowd control in their draft. You're really looking at Fafnir Hammer, and that's about it for stuff you really got to be worried about. You build a Heavenly Agility. You just get that slow immunity across your team, couple Wing Blades potentially for you. A lot of the CC from Georgia State goes out the window. It's very slow-based, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see that be a pickup here for the Husky Gaming. And if they can really neutralize basically on this Fafnir, I think that the Huskies have come away with a really good draft.
And following up on that, I mean, Mercury, already somebody that's difficult to deal with, but going for in-lane ganks sometimes, tower to tower. Like you said, proactive play, but still leaving some pressure there for the Danzaburo. And Rygen has been doing so much damage. It just feels like such a good backline on the side of Northeast.
It does, but if they fall behind, if they let this Georgia State draft really start to get the ball rolling and get some momentum going, it is very difficult to stop.
Hard to
because if you let Sol get a little split push off, she's going to take a tower. If you let Chiron do it, he'll take the tower. Nemesis can really get into that back line pretty well. I think this is going to be a fun one to watch. It's
a snowball, but the size of a boulder. We'll have to see if Georgia State can get their feet under them or if Husky Gaming can give them a little bit of trouble here as we jump down to the caster. We got Dave and Mifflin here for game number 1.
Appreciate it, Gore and Agro. It's time to see if Georgia State can keep the ball rolling here and find a win over Northeastern. My name is Dolson. Mifflin is with me for game number 1 between these two squads, and Mifflin should be a good one.
Yeah, I think so. Georgia State, if memory serves, has won, 2 AVGL championships as well as the NACE championship. These guys are heavy favorites coming into this one, Dave. And as I already highlighted on the desk, if you follow this scene, you know every single one of these guys, especially on the GSU side. They have been playing together for going on 4 years now.
Yeah, it's a team that's built up a lot of synergy over the years and should be able to convert some of that into success here up against Northeastern. Northeastern, a team, though, you saw the graphic on the pregame desk, a team that only lost 2 sets in the AVGL this year, 7-2. Georgia State was 8-1. So absolutely stiff competition. Where do you see this Georgia State team finding some of this pressure early on? You got to imagine that the confidence, the experience, the chemistry is going to be a big advantage maybe in the early game here. Where do you see some of that starting to build up?
Almost always around a duo lane like this. When you've got Chiron on your team, regardless of support, you have great early game pressure potential. The second you tick over to level 2, we see these guys utilize that bluestone, that transcendent start, that additional power to use Giddy Up and just W key at the opposition. So keep your eye on Zuo God. He might be the first one in.
Well, and this is probably the last little bit of time. We'll see some standard in the early game. Cake will survive, but can you say the same about Avant-Garde? The damage from range nearly connecting, but now Not a Valve Game is over. State, are you kidding me? Georgia State turns it around. A 2-kill swing in the mid lane to start off the game.
Soul so slippery, man. So hard to finish off those kills. Look, that's a tough situation. Not often is someone getting away with one auto attack, but not a Valve game. Sticking inside that engagement, walking into an entire minion wave, we saw how quickly those archers burned them away. I want to see a little bit more discipline from the Chaos team.
Well, that's a great start now for Georgia State. Almost right as we're talking about it, this mid lane, the jungle mid 2v2 has been so popular in the early stages of the game here so far over in Season 8. Basically gets rooted down here, but a nice stun on the back end will stop Ramujo from following up with any damage there. So now you've got a jungler, Strongest War God, 1-0-1 on this Nemesis, Avant-God, 1-0-1 on this Soul as well. It's about how you build off that pressure in the next few minutes.
Yeah, now it seems like they want to transition that lead over towards the Soul lane, and look at that, not at level 2. Mercury cannot put up any sort of defense, so this blue buff should go down absolutely for free.
Should be for free, and kind of looking over towards that duo lane, Mifflin, that's where you figured you'd see a little bit of pressure early on here in this game. The Sunder is going to be interesting to follow along with from this Fafnir as well. Every once in a while, you'll see the Sunder completely upgraded, and you'll see just massive burst damage immediately on the onset of a game like this, but basically it's gone boots, starter item, Sunder, normal Sunder here 3 minutes in. And that's a conversation we'll have as the year goes on here. We're obviously going to be on the current patch for the SPL this week, and then boots are going to go by the wayside, so I think some of these support starts are going to be pretty fun to follow along with, but that's a conversation for a week or two down the road when we get there. Now, you got to look towards Husky Gaming, the jungler over there, not a Valve game on this Mercury. Obviously, you have a little bit of a time frame there, Mifflin, to get into this game, get that ball rolling on this Mercury. Not ideal, though, to be just a bit behind early on.
No, not at all. Now Danzaburo left alone and isolated, tries to use the leaves to get away. The beads keep the slow off of him, but not a good enough hammer from Basely. Going to walk out of that one. Not for free, at least lost the defensive relic, so Georgia State can look to put the pressure over here a little bit more so for the next couple of minutes. But you were talking about this Mercury, now how he needs a little bit of time to catch up, and I do agree, but he does benefit from playing against the Nemesis. The second, not a Valve game, ticks over to level 5. We've seen what this Mercury matchup can do into gods like Chiron. Doesn't have a traditional leap. His ultimate essentially leaves him rooted. Means that just use that Sonic Boom, close the gap, pick up those kills.
Yeah, it feels like that's a Samford soccer pick through and through that we've seen at the SPL level. Let's sit between the Tier 1 and Tier 2 tower and just ult down lane, see if we can catch somebody off guard. Mid lane continues to find pressure, pushing in against it if you're Husky Gaming now. Cake has been effectively farming under tower for the last couple minutes. Serial has been there as well, and that opens up the door to this. Strongest War God is now being able to invade some of the back camps that Husky Gaming is going to have off cooldown. There's going to be a blue buff here as well, so these are small moments that could make a big difference as the game goes on.
Yeah, GSU doing such a good job controlling the farm on the right-hand side of the map. Second blue buff invade going to go their way, and no opposition from the Husky boys. They're just not there to defend.
They're not a Valve game. Maybe looking for an ultimate through the jungle here. Serial has eaten the Nemesis ultimate, and look at the collapse from Georgia State. It's a 4-man rotation, and that one's not all that hidden, Miff. When we know that there's 3 guys from Georgia State kind of rotating over towards that right-hand side, it seems like that should be pretty obvious, just like this. Now, not a Valve game jumped on, not Avant-Garde, a double kill, and Georgia State starting to run away with things here, only 5 minutes in.
My heart goes out to not a Valve game. He didn't have his dash and use it to get away, but does not want to give up that speed buff. Every jungler can tell you that exact feeling that's running through his mind. I need it. I want that speed. I want to be able to walk quickly, and it synergizes so well with Mercury's kit, but unfortunately stands a little bit too close to the sun and gets burned for his efforts.
Again, it just feels like Georgia State is not necessarily shrouding anything in darkness here. They're pretty obviously standing on that side of the jungle, and Husky Gaming, you might feel like trying to overstay just a little bit, basically tossed back in to the awaiting grasp of Husky Gaming, but they're not going to pick up any kills, just a little bit of damage on basically, and he'll grab the hammer, back away. So you admire some proactivity there from the Huskies, but Georgia State still playing smart. They're holding on to that lead, Mifflin. We're about 3,000 gold in the advantage 6 minutes in.
That's a pretty sizable lead going forward. And to speak to your point in that GSU wasn't hiding it, that doesn't mean that there was really a great opportunity for Husky Gaming to engage. Don't ever do math on camera.
That's a full 1,000 off.
I didn't even check it, man. I trusted you.
No, you trusted me. It's the worst thing you could do.
But as I was saying, basically did a really good job on that blue buff invade to make sure that both Serial and Cake were zoned off. It gave Georgia State just a little bit more time to set up onto the blue buff. They clear it before the opposition shows up, and then they shift their attention to the fight. Clean play.
Zen has got to be careful here over in the solo lane. Young Avius has got some pressure pushing in here on this Osiris. Couple of assists there and a couple levels in the lead is this Osiris Myth. When we started to see a little bit more of this, the mask start gives you some flexibility in the mid to late game, depending on where you want that starter item to end up going. Now it's going to be a root onto the Osiris, though. The follow-up from Georgia State is swift. This is a 3-0 Soul coming out of the mid lane, and the damage is surely there. Strongest War God picks up the kill. But it's just the same play run a few minutes later, Myth. A blue buff invade, a pick, and now Georgia State going to find not a Valve game yet again.
And maybe able to pick that one up. The
Wow,
damage
that's
output is good from Soul, but not a Valve game does confirm his speed buff. Also, Husky Gaming able to pick up the blue buff as well. This time around, they rotated in numbers. They were in mass, and they were there first. Confirmed the bust, but at the cost of a life. 5-0 stands the slash line at the top of the screen, and this gold lead is now starting to approach that 3,000 mark.
It's starting to move in that direction, still hovering around the correct number, which is what it was about 2,000. See if Georgia State can expand on that gold lead here. Stun from Ramujo on to Georgia State, but a whirlwind of Rage and Steel sends one back, but God will pick up the first. Finally, Husky Gaming on the board as Cake is rotated through. The Raijin pouring out the damage from the back line. Nobody's looked at the mid laner now, basically looking like he'll be the third to fall here, and not a Valve game will pick up the double.
Yeah, GSU comes into that fight with a huge gold advantage, but that was all gold in pocket. They had not gone back to base to spend it up, so items largely equalized across the board. Even Husky Gaming may be approaching that fight with a couple more items under their belt, and were able to swing it back in their favor slightly. We were thinking it was going to be a 3,000 gold lead. Well, no, it's been cut down now. Husky Gaming able to find their footing here and take a peek at not a Valve game. We were talking about his catch-up game. Well, he's there, level 8-8 up against Strongest War God.
And now it's not a Valve game with a little extra gold in the back pocket as well. And so if this Mercury continues up this pace, that's going to be something Georgia State have to keep their eyes open for here. Still in a comfortable position, not always lost. You lost about 1,000 gold over the last minute or two, Georgia State have, but still in the driver's seat here of this game. Look at the reply from the Huskies, though. This blue buff coming off of cooldown. You brought Serial over, not a Valve game here as well. Zenners is going to rotate over from the solo lane. They don't want to make any mistakes around this blue buff. They don't want to give Georgia State a free route in.
No, but splitting the farm so wide means that they're really not farming the map nearly as efficiently as GSU right now. But I do like the pace that we're starting to see from Husky Gaming. They're starting to play together as a team. They're making sure nothing's falling through the cracks, and they've been finding the aggression off of the back of fantastic sonic booms or Cake using the thunderclap aggressively. But my one big question mark so far this match is, where's the duo lane presence? We haven't seen anybody go over to the long.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's really been the supports rotating out of that lane that has made the impact. It's been a duo lane impact elsewhere, but it's been the supports getting it done. Ramujo, no chance here. Oh, the rocket crashes into the wall, and so do the chances of this Donza staying alive. Strongest War God now back on the board. 304 is this Nemesis. It has been jungle plus mid effectively every step of this game so far here for Georgia State.
It really has been. Making me eat my words. I thought we'd see a lot more dual lane aggression. Seems like the adaptation from GSU is, all right, look, we couldn't get the blue buff for the 4th time in a row. Maybe we shift our attention over towards purple, and that's exactly what happens now. Denzaburo, still no beads for 20 seconds, doesn't have the ultimate available. Wouldn't be overly surprised if we see continued rotations from GSU. In the past, when they find one invade, they stick to it. They want to make sure they stay on top of that timer.
Ozuo got a power point here. He's got the Ninja Tabi and a fully stacked Transcendence online. Ramujo, just the tier 1 item in the immediate advantage, but Zuo God will go back, spend up some of that gold. Top of the net worth charts by only about 300, 400 gold or so is the Georgia State Hunter, so not a scary advantage just yet, but something you'll have to keep your eyes on once that Chiron starts to rotate into some of these fights. Been a quiet last couple minutes from Avant-Garde. Not that he's had a poor game by any stretch. 3-1-4, so a fantastic slash line from the mid laner. But maybe once the right-hand side slows down a little bit, you let this Soul farm a bit up, hit some of those power spikes, and we'll see some serious damage here in the next skirmish.
Yeah, GSU's actually at such a good power point with the 2-level deficit inside of the duo lane. Zuo God has his 2nd relic available to him. This essentially double hunter composition, magical hunter inside of Avant-Garde with Gold Fury spawned, means that the POI being on the left-hand side is only going to favor GSU. Yep. They might as well try and group up and force a fight there.
Yeah, bit of a rotation happening over towards the Gold Fury. Cake is going to dash away and use the Taiko drums. That's a big piece of utility and damage that's now down. And the reply from Georgia State is to collapse in around these oracles. Not the Gold Fury just yet, but now can play around the fact that the mid laner for Northeastern, doesn't have the ultimate online.
No, Cake gonna have to play very defensively if this Gold Fury does get started up. GSU, though, very happy with just finding these small wins. Taking the Taiko drums in its own right is a small win. So they can go ahead and reset, go back to farming, clear out the jungle, which there's a lot of jungle on their side of the map left to be taken because generally they've been farming the enemy team's jungle. So once they clear all of that out, go back to base, spend up their gold, I really do expect to see them group up around this Gold Fury.
How big of a threat is this Raijin looking to here, Mifflin? Well, I mean, Avant-Garde over there, 3-1-4, is now falling a level behind somehow. The farm has just been pouring into this mid laner, it feels like here, Miff, and Cake has just kept himself in a state of relevance. Finally some action, though, on the right-hand side of the map. It's going to be a knock-up connecting onto a couple, but no chance here for Zenners. Now Kokolen will fall down, and Strongest War God will notch the 4th kill of the game.
Husky taking a classic play here. Too many people inside the solo lane, might as well head over towards the Gold Fury. 4-member core standing around it, burning pretty slowly. I don't think they can stick around too much longer. Already GSU made the rotation.
Yeah, a couple of autos getting into the Gold Fury there, but I don't think that was a full-on attempt from the Huskies this time, just seeing what the reply would look like from Georgia State. And I think you were right to call it out there, Miff. This is a Georgia State team that, between a Soul and a Chiron and then a Fafnir with Coerce, if there's even a slight moment where the Huskies aren't close by, you have to imagine this Gold Fury is going to be going down very quickly. You see a ward over on the Gold Fury, at least at the moment. So that's an objective that Georgia State will be able to burn quickly, and it's something the Huskies have to consider in their positioning and their ward coverage over the next couple minutes.
Legitimately, if GSU groups up with just the 3 core members that you bring up there, I think the Gold Free falls in sub 15 seconds. That's the window that Husky Gaming is going to have to respond in, and that is a lot of threat on the board. But so far, GSU has elected to keep up this kill pressure. They're not so concerned with the objectives right now, and instead are trying to squash the map, and it's reflected in the slash lines 8 and 3. Our GSU across the top. And still, for some reason, almost karmic justice, Dave. That gold lead won't make it to 3K, man.
It won't. Yeah, it was my fumble that's now become, I think karmic justice is probably the right word for it there, Miff. And we'll see if Georgia State can push it to a 3K lead. It seems like we're bounding towards that. Georgia State has not kept up this absurd, high-pressure, high-stakes type gameplay that we saw around the blue buff early in the game. It has just been good farming, good pressure over the last couple minutes that have built up that gold lead and allowed Georgia State to reach this power point. Now, a question that I had that got cut off by this fight over there on the right-hand side of the map is the threat that this Raijin brings to the table. Got Divine Ruin early on, Power Boots, Charon's Coin, 1 level ahead of the 3-1-4 Soul. You got to feel like in the one fight that Huskies felt comfortable winning, it was when the Raijin was in the back line finding that damage. That's got to be something Georgia State keep their eyes on.
And taking a peek at Cake's build, it's an earlier build. It's a much cheaper items. The Karen's Coin and the Divine Ruin. It's not that traditional Rod of Tahuti. It's not a Sphere of Desolation. He came online a lot more quickly than you expect a lot of these more expensive mage builds. So he's trying to utilize that early aggression that Raijin has afforded to do exactly what you're talking about, turn these fights around. And so far now, what was a 1-level lead has expanded itself towards 2. Cake level 14 to Avant-Garde's 12. But take a peek at the Gold Fury.
Yeah, here's the collapse that we figured Georgia State would be throwing out at some point. Basically, he's going to transform here. Gold Fury taken low, but now it's been juggled back towards the Huskies. Is Serial going to trade out his life? But no, Georgia State, they get the Gold Fury anyway, and a kill on a Serial on the end. Ramujo will use the rocket. He'll soar his way away here back to safety. But this is a big swing here in this game. Huskies, they had to reply. They did reply, but they lose at least 1 life and the Fury on the end.
Just surprised to see the Huskies hold on to the aggro there as Avant-Garde takes out Cake. Unfortunate situation off the rotation from this Osiris, and with the Scorpion down on the Fire Giant side and with Cake dead for the next 30 seconds, this could open up the door for a Pyromancer, or a little bit less likely, but still potential, Fire Giant with this draft.
And I don't think it's fair entirely. At the beginning of the game, it really was Strongest War God, Avant-Garde. Just the 1-2 punch was there. Basically, has really roared into this game here as well. 1-1-6 affected 7 of the 10 kills compared to 9 of the 10 kills for both the jungler and the mid laner on this team. This Fafnir has started to see a lot of play at the SPL level. Now seeing some play here in the AVGL. Makes some sense. The Sunder, the hammer into the Sunder, into Coerce with the team that you've got built here. There's so much utility in that kit when you got a player like basically making it work. no surprise we see it prioritized.
But once this game goes to the 20, 25-minute mark, if it does make it to that point, Agro brought up a really good point on the desk. There's not a lot of consistent CC from this GSU draft. It's a lot of slows. You've got Osiris, you've got Nemesis, you've got the AoE slow from Fafnir, but as far as hard CC goes, yeah, you got the hammer, and that's just about it. Sure, the tether from Osiris might conditionally be able to find a stun every here and there, but it's going to be very hard for GSU to navigate these team fights once it comes down to that tried and true 5v5.
Yeah, having only a hammer might work for Thor, but maybe not the entire stack that Georgia State are bringing to the table here. We haven't seen much out of this Mercury. There was a slight swing where Not a Valve Game was able to pick up a couple kills. So again, that was a lot of Cake staying alive, doing big damage. Not a Valve Game was there to complete some of that damage. But speaking of damage, there's the double dash and then the collapse in. Aegis gets used by this Mercury. There'll be a stun on the back end. Oh, but a read from the Osiris as he jumps back in under the tier 2 tower. The slow connects, and then the collapse from Georgia State is swift. And then Osiris picks up the first kill of the game here. 105 now for the soul laner, but an important trade back.
Not a Valve Game survives for way too long there.
Oh,
and Kosh from this war got his life, but we were worried about Cake in that 1v1 matchup. We thought maybe with that level deficit he'd be able to come out ahead, but Avant-God picks him up in the 1v1.
Yeah, the soul starting to swing now despite what was a couple levels of differential earlier on in this game. The skirmish still happening over here on the right. It's solo laners plus supports. So no high damage numbers rolling through just yet, but you got to be careful. That upgraded Sunder is online, so if basically senses some blood, he'll let that one fly. But for the time being, you're leaving this soul just to whittle down these towers, so you lose a solo kill in mid, and then both towers in the mid lane. We've finally gone way past that 3,000 gold lead we didn't know if we'd ever reach. And Georgia State, you feel like Mifflin, now the pieces are in place to really run away with this game.
Yeah, they've opened up the map so much, stripping away both those towers inside mid. Going to make it easier to go for Gold Fury. Is going to make it easier to go for Fire Giants as well. Ramujo caught out on his back, slowed out by the Chiron. Both relics used, but maybe only elongating his life by a couple seconds.
Here's the good news. He'll be able to go back and buy a lot quicker.
Hold on.
But there's a big taunt back in. Could he turn it? No, he couldn't. I nearly got caught a bit out myself there. Basically took more damage than I think he thought he would. But there's a tower down and a kill nonetheless, and now Georgia State grab one more over onto Ramujo. The Don Zaburo has just not had a comfortable game up to this point. And hasn't that been so much of the conversation around this god where you pick a Donza, if it gets ahead, it feels unkillable. But if it gets behind, and 3 levels is how behind Donza is right now, doesn't feel as good.
Yeah, Dan Zaburo is the god of win harder or lose even harder than that. He's got not really great escape options. We've seen time and time again inside of this match right here. Okay, Ramujo's caught out. He uses the ultimate, gets immediately surrounded by the entirety of GSU. Sure, he finds a stun or a little bit of AoE damage, but at the end of the day, he's just surrounded. It's not quite enough damage output for him to turn around these engagements. Had he pulled ahead, though, rocking in aggressively would have resulted in a kill every single time. That is the duality of the Japanese god here. But now GSU trying to utilize their pressure on the map, utilize their gold lead as well
FG,
to go to the big FG.
Yeah, why not? Look, you're 7K in the lead. You've got a Soul, a Chiron, and a Coerce for basically on the back end. You're going to do this objective quickly. This is the type of moment, though, that the Huskies could find themselves back in the game. You make a big play around the FG, you can turn things around. It's a massive ultimate from Serial, but it's massive damage from Zuogod to pick up the first kill in this fight. Health bar's whittling from Georgia State, but the damage is just too overwhelming. There's too much. Ramujo will return 1 kill on back. It's a 2-for-1 trade, but it's a triple kill from Zuogod. Could be a quad, and the Chiron's got it. 4 down for Georgia State.
And now what are they going to do? They're so low HP. They're going to be careful around this Fire Giant, but Osty's ticking. They got the healing from Chiron's passive. Fire Giant going to go to 4 members of GSU here. Husky tries their best to just elongate that engagement a little bit. Serial gets there about 10 seconds before the rest of his team, finds a 4-man ultimate, and then goes into the coffin for his troubles. Unfortunate situation, but Husky Gaming's going to have to play a little bit more aware around these objectives. They're too slow on the rotation. If Serial isn't forced to make that suicide play, maybe the engagement goes a little bit cleaner. GSU didn't win that fight handily. A lot of them squeaked it out, 1 or 2 autos from dying.
Yeah, Serial blinked, or I blinked, and Serial was just missing, so I don't know if this Xing Chen feeling all that confident around this Phoenix right now, but there's so much gold in the back pocket of Georgia State. They just go back, spend some of it up, and you can get back on this map to take this game. And the good news is for Georgia State, they've done so much passive tower killing before this FG even started. You got 1 tier 2 tower left on the map. And you're going to have effectively the entire remainder of this Fire Giant power play to maybe turn something around. Strongest War God, is this an overstay, or is he going to turn it around? Of course he is. He's got a 3-level lead over not a Valve game. Plenty of health. He wasn't even worried for a moment. Now Georgia State got 40 seconds without the Northeastern jungler on the map.
Strongest War God playing around that shield. Not a Valve game should have held on to his third ability until that shield came out to catch him, burn it away, and then take it. One auto attack is all it would have taken. Unfortunately, though, uses his dash to engage the fight and then loses the fight in that exact same frame. I thought it was going to be an overstay, man. I mean, not really a great reason for Strongest War God to invade a purple buff at a quarter HP when your team has Fire Giant. Seems like an unnecessary risk, but it pays out for him this time.
He's not the weakest War God. He's the strongest War God.
Of course.
I'm not invading that purple if my name is the weakest War God, but he's playing with house money every time he logs into a game. So now Georgia State are absolutely playing with house money. There's a Tier 2 tower remaining on the left-hand side of the map. Huskies have a chance underneath their Phoenixes. The game is not over yet. Their Titan is still standing, but it is an absolute uphill battle. 4 members of Georgia State have reached level 20. Nobody from Northeastern have reached that same point here just yet. So maybe if you're throwing some love over to the Huskies, it's that now in the XP department, it's all playing catch up. The differential can't necessarily get any worse. But it's going to take a miracle, you feel like, Miff, under one of these Phoenixes.
They've got a composition, the Huskies that is very capable of defending. This is going to be the first time we see a true 5-on-5 fight start from neutral territory. Every single time we've seen a 5-on-5 engagement, it's 1 or 2 players getting caught out first. But now Husky, for the first time this game, is going to have an opportunity to take this fight. And they've got great CC. Keep your eye on Serial and keep your eye on Zen. They're going to be the big difference makers.
Well, Frenzy gets popped now for Georgia State, and so does the left side. Phoenix, not a Valve game, is in the back line, but he is all alone. We'll use the actives. But hey, no problem for Georgia State. First domino falls. The second one goes down as well. Now it's Ramujo back in the fountain trying to find the damage. Game 1 seems to be closing as Dongavius tanking up the Titan here. The rest of the damage flying in, half HP on the Titan. But you still got your carries. That's so important here for the Huskies if they're able to keep this game in the balance. It's 5% HP on the Titan. The last bit of damage flies through, and Georgia State take Game 1.
And a convincing Game 1 at that, Dave. Wow. That was, what, from minute 1 and then to minute 20, just constant action, constantly trying to find those kills, buff invades, whatever you want. GSU are trying to prove a point here. It's not a fluke that they've won 3 championships already.
Yeah, if this is the final matchup, look, Northeastern, they had some moments in that game where the Huskies looked like they might be able to bring things back. The game really slowed down, gave the Huskies a chance. The Cake in the mid lane had some good moments there, Miff. But it just felt clean from start to finish, didn't it, for Georgia State? In the moments that the game slowed down, it's not like they were going backwards. They were staying the same, and then they chose to skyrocket things. Northeastern, they got some turning around to do in Game 2. That'll come up right after this.
Trouble, you best beware. And go deep down, I know I might be headed for teardrops. Now that you got me started, I just can't stop. No, no. 'Cause I love you, baby. I can't let you go, baby. I gotta tell you that I won't. I've been looking for love so true. When I was down and out, along came you. Though you might be a liar and a cheat too, I just can't quit you now 'cause I love you.
Welcome back, everyone, to the AVGL Collegiate Championship here in the summer of 2021. Once again, Gormizer, Aggro, going to be bringing you through this death segment. But before we get through all of that, I just want to let you know, in case you missed it, because it was right at the tail end of the playoffs, that we do have some very special merch up on shop.smiteproleague.com. This is going to be the Pride merch, not just the SBL logo, but one that has hi-rez, has the Lightning Bolt, the Roku logo, and the Paladin's Crystal amongst the hearts. All proceeds from any of these being sold and bought will be going to the Trevor Project, of course, helping them with their crisis intervention and suicide prevention in LGBT youth, as well as just across the entire community. So not only repping the SBL, showing off your pride, and helping a good cause all in one go. It's the trifecta, as I would like to say it. So go get yours now. Again, shop.smiteproleague.com. But this is going to bring us now, Aggro, to what should be a pretty easy death segment. It was very... fast, I think a lot quicker than I was expecting. I mean, off the immediate engagement, you could tell that Georgia State was not playing around.
Exactly. I mean, this Georgia State team just oozes experience, it feels like, at this point. They just know what to do and when to do it. And early on, they got that early 2-for-0 at mid, and immediately you're thinking, here we go. You know, what is this Soul going to be able to do? AVGL was really, really difficult to kill on this pick. Got a solo kill on Cake later on in this game. And that's what I was saying with this style of composition. If you get ahead, how do you stop it? How do you get away from them? And if you don't, maybe you don't even have to fight them because they're just going to walk around and do objectives and do them faster than you can respond. Just a very impressive performance here from Georgia State.
And this one was probably the one that really seals the deal for you. You get a quadra kill on anybody. It should be enough to really stop the... I guess stop the presses is the best way to say it, but it's going to slow the game down and almost completely end you. There's very difficult ways to fight back. But unfortunately for Husky Gaming, they just didn't quite have the punch to pack this one down. As the quadra kill comes through for Zuogod, they get a Fire Giant off that, and everything from there just fell pretty much into the exact slot they needed it to.
I mean, this really tells the whole story, right? I mean, you find a guy low HP in your jungle. You feel like that should be the opportunity, or in the jungle, I should say, the opportunity to make a play happen and maybe swing the game back in your favor, and not a Valve game still unable to do it. So that this Georgia State team just has so much experience, not only just playing SMITE, but playing SMITE together, which is so important, and I really like the way they play the map.
And you could see it. I mean, Dongavius doesn't die at all. I think AVGL was the only one with 2 deaths, so maybe he got the solo laner's death tacked onto him there. But everybody goes down once. Zuogod, it was like 7-1. I think there was like a 5-2, a 6-1, things like that. Like their slash lines just indicate so well that they were fighting and they were winning each and every single time. So they started that off pretty much from the get-go. A good turnaround at the beginning of the game, but then they're invading. They kept the pressure up. If you're trying to change this around, if you're Husky Gaming, and as you can see behind me, they're going to be taking over first pick. What kind of things do you shuffle here as we get into picks and bans for game number 2?
I think you want to take the soul away from mid. I mean, obviously, AVGL was really, really strong in that game. Didn't do the most damage, but I think was just a very difficult character to kill in that mid lane. Probably take that out of his hands potentially. I think maybe this Chiron you got to take away from Zuo because... I mean, he kind of just quadra-killed you on it. But you can't afford to take both of those away. You kind of got to make one change or another. And being in that first pick slot does mean that things like Chiron that you can first pick instead of having to ban. So maybe something like ban Soul, pick Chiron would be what I'd be looking to do here. And they decide to ban the Soul. We'll see if the Chiron's in their plans.
I mean, Athena, Gilgamesh, Set all rejoining I guess now joining Soul for the first time. She wasn't up there last time around, but trying to control it. That double Hunter, quote-unquote, style of play was just too difficult to deal with. Yanis Sobek getting taken off the table as well. The Sobek is the one that's the most interesting conversation to me because he has been simultaneously on the rise and losing so many of those games anyway. Yeah. And they opt to ban that instead of this Tiamat, so that it definitely is a little bit of a juggle here.
Yeah, Sobek's just one of those gods that he's hard to kill. It's pretty easy to execute on what he's going to do. You just got to pluck someone and you've kind of done your job. I think it makes some sense to try and take that away, but at the expense of Tiamat is quite a bit. Now, Cake had a pretty rough game on that Raijin. Losing that early 2v2 made a huge difference. Can the Tiamat be able to scale? Because I don't think the Tiamat fights particularly well early game, and if Georgia State's going to turn up the Jets early, I don't know that Tiamat's really the right pick to necessarily withstand that storm. Now, if you can get to late game, great. Tiamat late game's phenomenal, of course, but I'm a little worried about the early game already for Husky Gaming.
Well, so far, GSU, they go back to the Chiron, so they're able to get that pick back. But two gods that were banned out last time, the Tsukiyomi picked up here for GSU. The Huskies going to be grabbing that Ymir, going back to the Cullen as well here as they lock it in. This is where things get a little more interesting. I mean, the Ymir, Tsukiyomi were actually the final two bans for Georgia State at the end of the last ban phase, so they were trying to kind of keep those away from the Huskies on the other side. I'm really excited for what this Ymir can do. I mean, you remember in recent memory, he got a 2-second knock on his wall, which kind of hurts, but at the end of the day, a wall's a wall, and that's what matters most to me, and I think he's going to be able to bring a lot of that prowess.
And what I'm saying, they need a little bit more early game. Ymir Kakulin is perfect by Husky Gaming. And, even though the execution wasn't great in Game 1, I think that they've clearly done their homework on how they want to draft, and I think they've come away with some pretty good picks and bans in Game 1 and at the beginning here of Game number 2. I like the Ymir Kakulin pickup. It gives you side lane pressure basically automatically. I just want to see them pick a hunter that can really utilize it. Really, in my opinion, Tiamat should be the only late game sort of scaling option that they've got on their side. I want to see them go a little bit more early game leaning with both their hunter and their jungle pick.
Well, Onhurt, Danzaburo are the hunters that are taken away by Georgia State over there, so trying to limit those factors. Fafnir Yamoja surprisingly made it down this far and get banned out there by the Huskies. Ganesh is going to be taking their place. And Ganesh, I mean, if you're looking at, hey, can we get early game pressure in the duo lane, I can't think of someone better to do it against. Like, that silence is really annoying, but you're Ymir. You get to do a lot more annoying things in the first 5 minutes.
Exactly, and Kabrakin, perfect. Early game, gank-oriented jungler who's able to clear well enough, but really wants to fight. Gibalanke, maybe not exactly what I was thinking of, but I think it can work. I mean, you get pretty guaranteed laden pressure with branching bolas the vast majority of the time. You're able to play aggressively and get ahead. You've got a pretty long-range dash that can potentially keep up with Chiron when he dashes away from you. You've got enough front line here that I think the Gibalanke can work, even though we don't see it that much.
Been a little while since we've seen Gibalanke, and been a little while since we've seen him winning as well, so we'll have to see where exactly he's going to slot in. Erlong Shin, the final lock-in here for Georgia State. And again, this is a best of 3, so if they can do it here, it's done. They're the champions once again. A lot of this team seems really, really solid. Again, there's something that you could equate to some of the playoffs teams that we saw. Is this going to be enough? Potentially the Tsukiyomi solo going up against the Cullen. Are the Huskies going to be able to hold on?
I think so. I mean, I think that I favor Georgia State in this position. I mean, the Huskies did do a lot of things well in this draft. I really like getting the Tiamat. I like getting a staunch front line in front of her. At the end of the day, I think that Georgia State is just executing at a much higher level. So even though the Georgia State composition is harder to execute upon, I trust in their ability to do so.
We'll have to see here. Can the Gibalanke surprise us along with the rest of Northeastern here? The Huskies, let's go down to the casters for Game 2.
It's like Georgia State University on the verge of destiny here. One more win is all it'll take to be your AVGL champions once again. And in a moment like that, Mifflin, Husky Gaming, their backs are against the wall here. Northeastern needs some life. They go to a very unique pick here in the X-Ball.
Yeah, this X-Ball, when I think of this pick, there's one player that jumps out to me. It's a little bit of a callback. Back in Season 7, Meerkat was playing ADC, and he was doing it pretty often on this pick. But for now, I think that they've got a draft that can certainly work. Agro brings it up on the desk. It's a very, very staunch front line built around this Tiamat who should be able to act as ranged artillery, should be able to split the map with what is essentially Oni minion waves wherever you want, able to spawn those lizards over in the long lane if you're dancing around the Fire Giant, or in the Fire Giant lane if you're doing it around the Gold Fury. But I think that, if anything, they struggled so much in the early game last time around that they're going to have to break it out to the 25, 30-minute mark for this draft to work, and I'm not sure that Husky can do it up against this incredibly aggressive GSU draft.
Now, what an interesting... Look, I bring up the Gibalanke for good reason. It's such an interesting hunter pick. Kabrakin out of the jungle? I mean, that's kind of wild here to me, Mifflin. Was that maybe Cherio last season in the SPL that we saw bring this pick out a couple of times? The ability to get aggressive, blink in, find big damage and some lockdown, I don't think can be understated. Can it keep up with the Erlong Shen? Is it maybe more conditional damage and setup than the Erlong Shen has? What do you see there in the jungle?
It's a lot easier to execute on than Erlong Shen, especially inside the early game. You are right to bring up it was Cherio most recently piloting that god, but it's super easy to play Kabrakin jungle. You blink in, you stun again, you start tremoring, and you hope that your team's got enough damage around you to finish off your kill from there. The only issue not a Valve game might have is if he falls behind, he's going to stay behind.
You have to imagine there was kill pressure there if basically would have grabbed that stun onto Remujo. Strongest War God here, level 2. Oh, look at the
route.
toss back from Zuo God, and look at the opening kill here in game number 2 from Strongest War God. But now Not a Valve Game is rotated into this fight. There's a stun connecting from the mid lane. Not a Valve Game limping away. The body blocks are there, but Zugod has found his way around. Are you kidding me? Strongest War God's got a double. It's a dream start here for Georgia State. A double for Zuo God as well. A 4-0 start in the duo lane.
Man, these Husky guys, they must be best friends, dude. If one of us dies, we're all dying together. Cake walks in legitimately 15 seconds later. Is like, look, guys, we're going to hit the old dusty trail, mosey on through the entirety of GSU. Of course, that's not going to work. 2 minutes in, 4 kills, and we're approaching that 3,000 gold lead again.
Let's go. No, Mifflin, it's 1,000.
I said approaching, all right? We're getting there. They're making strides.
All right, so as long as the number is not 0 the entire game, we are approaching a 3,000 gold lead on either side. So you're not wrong. I factually cannot disprove anything you just said. But you did the same incorrect math that I think I did last time. But it's gonna start to build here. Georgia State, they group as 3. They grab that red buff. Cake's got to be careful here in this mid lane. Basically, had rotated on over from dual lane as well. Strongest War God off to a dream start here, 2-0-2. And Zuo God as well. All right, so you get a pick in this Chiron. You're an X-Ball. You're going up against what is a difficult lane in the Chiron with the Bluestone and the way that lane goes. And now Chiron's 2-0-2. You have to imagine Remujo is just kind of in a play safe and farm up at all costs, but don't take any risks type of play style for effectively the rest of the laning phase.
Yeah, well, luckily, he's got a global ultimate still, can at least blind out the entirety of GSU once he does tick over to 5, which is a little ways off. Zuo God getting his ultimate available much sooner than Remujo. This is going to be a very tough lane for the X-Ball. Sure, you've got a little bit of CC immunity inside of the dash. You can use it to avoid the giddy up, but it has slight pre-fire frames. If he gets caught out trying to use that third ability, Remujo's life will essentially be forfeit if Zuo God ever closes gap.
Well, fighting happening in mid lane here, and it's Avant-God, the only player on Georgia State outside of the soul lane without a kill, but could remedy that here as the ultimate is caught out onto Cake. Cake low on health, low on mana as well. It's a beautiful wall, and that leaves basically alone. And it's a double pull back in, a double stun on the backside. Not a Valve Game. We'll grab the first kill of the game here for the Huskies. Strongest War God gets stunned on through as well. It's a double kill for the Kabrakan. The ultimate comes through at the right time, but some good counterplay there with the Ganesh runs right on through.
Surprised to see Avant-God step out of the tower at 1/10 HP after he's already confirmed himself some safety, trying to get back and involved as is Zen trying to catch out this Tsukiyomi. Does not have a kill just yet, but does pick it up. Solo kill for Husky. They're not willing to go down without a fight.
Zen blinks over the wall, grabs the damage and the kill over onto Georgia State. So a 4-kill swing at the onset of this game, a 3-kill swing over the next couple of minutes. It was really only the solo lane that hadn't seen any action just yet. And Zen has remedied that. Now 1 kill on the board with his Kulkullen. Strongest War God still peeking over here towards Remujo. No ultimate for this X-Ball. And so Strongest War God's going to have to make some sort of crazy play happen here if that one's going to find some success. But instead, just pressure pushing in, purple buff invade, and this is what you expect to see. Kind of on cooldown over the next few minutes.
Yeah, it makes sense that GSU are putting a little bit more of their eyes towards this long lane, considering that the lead elsewhere on the map has effectively been cut. There's not really a huge lead in mid. It's just Zuo God benefiting from a pretty large deficit already, almost an entire level over his opposition. So expect GSU to be over at this purple buff on cooldown consistently going to the next couple of rotations of it. But so far, got to give credit where it's due. Husky Gaming doing a great job mitigating loss.
And it was really not a Valve Game there in the mid lane that drove so much of that pressure in the 2-kill swing that we saw. It was a double for the Kabrakan. Now, so often we've seen the mask start, and then the mask gets sold at some point, so a different starter item can get picked up later on in the build. I'll return to this thought here in just a moment as Dungavius will use his ultimate here, flies on through, grabs the kill onto Zen. Not a Valve Game, throws down the ultimate as well, and a killing spree is what the Kabrakan has reached here. Strongest War God's got to be careful, very low on health, but Remujo, you could say the same for the Jabalanke, but the last bit of damage is dodged, and Remujo will stay alive to fight another day.
Maintains his beads as well, so Remujo gets through a huge hurdle here. Unfortunate drop kill from Zuo God. Had he hit that last shot, would have certainly picked up the kill for himself, but now he's lost out on a lot of his kill pressure going into the next couple of minutes. Remujo effectively has cut his lead as well. Husky Gaming absolutely still in this one, just about 600 gold separating these two teams at the 6-minute mark. Much better look at Husky Gaming in Game 2 than we saw in Game 1.
Right, it was a less horrible start in Game 1, but that one got completely out of control, you feel like, by 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, just kidding, minutes into the game. This one is a horrific start. It's a 4-0 swing at the onset, and the Huskies have shown such fight back now over the last couple of minutes that have brought things so close to being back towards even. Again, though, so much of that counter pressure has been coming from not a Valve game, finding those return kills. It's a 3-1-0 Cabrakan. You imagine he's building towards that damage, and I think Mask and Magic Focus would indicate that here. How confident are you feeling, Mifflin, in a carry Cabrakan out of the jungle?
It can certainly work, but as the game goes on, as it gets a little bit further and everyone starts to pick up more damage, then we're going to see him struggle with this squishy build. AVGL caught out by Cake here, eats the knockup and tries to work his way out. ZuoGod in the exact same situation.
Oh man, ZuoGod had a great setup here in this lane and now getting collapsed on by the duo lane of the Huskies. It's a follow-up from Ramujo, but the body blocks from basically will delay things, but only delay it a little bit longer. Ramujo finds the opening kill here. AVGL still alive in the mid lane. Cake gets rooted down, knocked up, killed off. And Georgia State have traded back one, and now basically will have to dash away here as well. Cancels the silence, and now it's a double kill from Ramujo. So the big swing has now happened here in the duo lane. The Javelanque was way behind, now picks up a couple kills, a couple assists.
Yeah, that is a huge swing for him. Has a 1-level lead towards the ADC on the order side now, so he should be able to farm up a little bit more safely. I still don't love the X-Ball into Chiron matchup, even though he does have a slight lead now. Still going to favor the god with death immunity inside of the kit, as well as inherent healing already, so should have the sustain advantage. As Zen caught out yet again.
Strongest War God was just over in the mid lane, now rotates on over here towards the right. It's a stun to lock down some CC, and Strongest War God will find his way back into the kill column yet again. 3-1-4 on this Erlang Shen. These junglers, it feels like they've just been stepping up so consistently in this early game, not only in game 1, but here in game 2 as well. Not a Valve game, I'll say it again, has been driving basically all of the counter pressure from the Huskies. And you feel like for Georgia State and the Panthers, Strongest War God has been bringing so much pressure there as well, affecting all 7 of the kills.
Yeah, both teams playing this incredibly aggressive style within their lanes, looking for 1v1s, trying to solo out their opposition, not only in the short lane, but mid laners are taking 1v1s against each other. The only one that hasn't really looked for the fight is Ramujo over here in the long lane. And with every lane playing this aggressively, it creates phenomenal opportunities for both squads' junglers to get involved. That's why we're seeing Strongest War God consistently come into these lanes trying to find fights. Same with not a Valve game. A lot of this match is going to ride on these junglers. They're the separating factor right now.
Feels like so much is mirrored right now. The KDAs for solo lanes are the same, for hunters are the same, for supports are the same. A little bit of difference there in mid, slight difference out of the jungle as well, but this is about as even as you get here. Gold not all that far one direction or the other, still about 400 or so for Georgia State. Georgia State is a team, though, Miff, if you're kind of getting into the mind of these players, this is absolutely a team that regardless of the way that early game has kind of slipped away from them, they are keeping up this pace. They're keeping up this aggression. You have to imagine the confidence is not going to slip that far away from the Panthers.
No, they're looking just fine right now. Able to force out Serial's blink with just threat of aggression. Strongest War God turns the corner and Serial decides he doesn't want any part of it, which gives GSU the opportunity to spawn up the first POI this time around. Going to be the Gold Fury coming up very soon, and they still do have phenomenal burn potential. It's not the same as a double Hunter composition with the Soul and the Chiron, but they do have defense, shred from the Dharmic Pillars. They've got such great additional power afforded to them by Discordia's passive as well, and an auto-attack jungler is going to make up for some of that burn potential.
Hey, you mentioned something about 1v1s, and Dungavius wants another. Zen will let out the roar, and this one kind of fizzles on away. 4-man collapse from Georgia State around their own blue buff, just trying to see if the Huskies getting a little confident over here on the right-hand side of the map. It's been fun, I think, to follow along with the mid lane in this game as well. Cake and AVGL have put together some fun 1v1s as well, but not a Valve game is going to feel confident around this Pyromancer. Shouldn't have, though. Strongest War God picks up the kill. Pyromancer gets reset here. Cake letting out some damage from range, and so the Pyro gets reset, but not a Valve game, just a little bit earlier than the rest of the Huskies.
But maybe the Huskies able to get something in return. Pyromancer gets reset completely. Georgia State doesn't even stick around. So Huskies pick up the neutral objective. And we got a little micro view on my concerns around this Cabrakan pick, especially considering how glass cannon he's building already blinks in. You're thinking that's a miracle situation. Could maybe look for the 4-man wall, get a multi-man stun. Dude didn't touch the ground, got knocked up once and died before his toes could make contact with the earth yet again. And that is going to be a consistent threat, I think, until we see him pick up maybe a bruiser item or a dedicated defense item so he can actually get his abilities off. Doesn't even get the chance to use his ultimate there.
I guess that's a pretty good point, Myth, is that I've constantly been talking about, I'll see how this fight in mid lane ends up rolling back around. Cyril uses the ultimate. Cake doing his best to weave in some damage from the back line, and weave in damage he does, as well as Cyril. 3 half HP targets. Cake would love to capitalize on some of this. Avant-Garde being chased down by the tornado. But Georgia State, yes, Georgia State and the 3v2 are the ones who somehow escape.
They do. Interesting decision to use the tornado there from Cake. Had he decided to use the charging minion, I think it likely would have killed Avant-Garde in that situation, but forcing 3 people back to base is a pretty good opportunity to look towards the Gold Fury. All up to Zoogod to put up the defense.
Zoogod all alone here. Gold Fury down. There is a ward. Good eye there by Doug. The ultimate flies through. Zoogod has picked up a kill on the Cake. Huskies, though, will grab the Gold Fury, but Zoogod happy with grabbing 1 kill here for himself, and Cake off the map now for the next couple of minutes. That's going to leave Avant-Garde up and ready to farm away, but now to blink back through. Ramujo gets ulted in by the Suku. Ultimate gets popped now by the X-Ball, who run away beneath the tier 2 tower, but the ranged auto from Dungavius finds the kill. It's a taunt back through from Strongest War God, and a nice stun from Not a Valve Game in Georgia State. They don't care about the Gold Fury, they want the fight.
And they take the fight cleanly, as well as the duo lane tier 1 tower. But with Gold Fury and Pyromancer already removed from the map, where can GSU go to extend this lead, potentially trying to take out this tier 1 mid tower in mid? But already we've seen the Kukulkan rotate through and push it out.
No.
So instead duo?
Oh, it's a freeze, though. A nice double freeze. We saw one turnaround already happen, and the second happening before our eyes. Zoogod chasing down the Ymir, but he's taken a tower shot or 2 on his way out. It's a killing spree from the Chiron. Cake will leap back through here, basically is in range to provide some peel if need be. And the silence has found his way, but now Avant-Garde rotating in, a stun in from basically, and finally the Discordia able to notch the second kill.
GSU is just so much more willing to commit to violence, aren't they? It doesn't matter about the objectives. If anyone shows their map or shows themselves on the map from the side of Husky Gaming, they're going to have 3 members of GSU running them down. Not a Valve Game trying to take a play from their book, blinks in, trying to catch up, basically, who just walks away for free. Easy to get out when you're that tanky.
And I think that was some of the point I was trying to make. Of course, it got cut off by fighting, because these 2 teams have just been non-stop with it so far here this game. We've talked a bit about the Cabrakan and the return pressure that it's found, but it really feels like a lot of that, quote, return pressure has been a low-health target that Not a Valve Game can blink in on and find a kill after one of the lanes loses kind of a 1v1, a 2v2, something like that. So Not a Valve Game has been in the right place at the right time. But then I think to your point around that Pyromancer, we saw the first real example of a teamfight attempted setup, and it kind of went wrong there for Not a Valve Game, whereas on the other side, Strongest War God has just kind of been consistent here, 4, 2, and 6, affecting 10 of the 13 kills that have been brought forward from Georgia State. Similar playbook from Georgia State, but a little bit different, Myth. We've talked about how it's not the Soul, it's not the Fafnir, still have Chiron, but it's not that double hunter. Remember, around this point in the game, in game number 1, more of these towers were taken down. It made the ending of the game a little bit cleaner. So that's at least something that the Huskies have to hold on to here in a do-or-die game number 2. Their map state, while dwindling, at least is still up.
For now, I'd say GSU is firmly in control of this match as far as team fight goes, but give it another 10 minutes, I think this game is going to have a very huge tonal shift in favor of Husky Gaming. We still have not seen them utilize this Tiamat to split up the map. We haven't seen this insane front line creating space around this artillery mage. Once we start to see that team fight really start to come to fruition, that's where GSU is going to be put to the test. It is a story of, can Husky Gaming hold out till that point? So far, I'd argue they've done a great job of it.
They have. They've held out. The Huskies have held out. It's a 2,000 or 1,000 or so gold lead here, 15 or so minutes into the game. But this is a team, Georgia State, that'd be happy diving a tier 1 tower. Instead, the fight's going to be taken over towards the left. Serial will use the ultimate as the Ymir drops down into the earth and will eat the apple, and Zen will get the last bit of damage. Avant-Garde sends the damage right on through. He'll pick up the first kill onto Not a Valve Game. Strongest War God tanking up the tower has to leave. It's a 1-for-none trade, Georgia State ahead.
Gotta think that fight goes a little bit better for GSU had they not used so much of their tools on top of Serial once he goes into that Shards of Ice ultimate, but still, they come away with a clean engagement. But dedicating 4 members to the right-hand side of the map leaves an opportunity for Ramujo to go ahead and strip away a tier 1 on the left, and maybe now a 1v1 over a purple buff.
Yeah, we have seen...
No chase?
Were you expecting a chase there? Huskies, oh, they steal away the Pyromancer. It's a small moment, but that's what you need in a game like this to keep yourselves involved. Now Dongavius has to escape. Still good damage from Avant-Garde on the back line, and Serial will pick up 1 on a Dongavius. So it's a stolen Pyromancer and a kill. Husky Gaming sensing some blood in the water. They want to chase down the right-hand side of the map here, waiting on the wall to come up from the Ymir. There's a knock-up over on the left as well. The freeze connects, but it's Aegis and beads away. Zen on a warpath now as Cake picks up Strongest War God.
And now it's all about the retreat. Can Husky Gaming get out of there without losing too many more of their resources? And that is exactly what's going to happen. 20 seconds left on the Tsukiyomi, 30 seconds left on the jungler Erlong Shen. So this is an opportunity for them to get involved towards these objectives as Zuo God, looking for a 1v1, but not up against not a Valve game, tries to retreat and then walks on back in.
Well, there's some serious damage. That's a good damage check, because this Kabrakan has quieted down over the last few minutes, and we now see how much damage Not a Valve game can do to these carries. There were some pings around Zuo God, but that would have been so difficult to chase out this Chiron. Still a 1-level lead for Zuo God, 5-1-3 on the Chiron, and an absolute power point now where it can make an impact on one of these fights. Maybe around the Primal Furies, the Huskies have started it up. Zuo God half HP, Not a Valve game. Stuns him down and claps him to death. Zuo God MIA before my eyes. Georgia State still going to collapse in around this Primal Fury. It's a good stripe in from Avant-Garde, and then piercing Moonlight from Dongavius will follow up that good setup, but Ramujo has something to say about it, a 2-kill swing for the Huskies.
The horse blinders were on this Chiron, man. He got one thing on the mind, and it was Primal Fury. Easy
Carrots,
for Not a Valve game to walk up and use that Polynomicon to finish off that kill. Zen doing a great job creating space here. Doesn't mind if he loses his life, and he almost certainly will for it, unless Serial able to rotate through and peel him out. Georgia State not able to get anything in return. That is a 2 for 0. And a Gold Fury going the way of Husky.
And Zen stays alive, and look at the golden XP. What a difference a few minutes makes. The tonal shift happened, Myth, maybe a little bit earlier than you would have expected, but it still has occurred. And maybe that's a moment where Georgia State overstep a little bit. All of that starts with Not a Valve game finding big damage onto Zuo God. He wasn't able to sustain up all of that. And the dominoes just kind of fall from that point on. And so now it's the rare occurrence of Georgia State fighting from behind. We didn't see that at all in Game 1. We are not used to seeing that in the AVGL matches that these guys have played up to this point. And so the Huskies really in a position now with a good draft to set up, as you've pointed out, around this Tiamat to really start to close things out. The Fire Giants got to be on your mind here if you're the Huskies, and it's still pretty early in the game, 19 minutes.
It's now up to Cake to step up to bat. They built a draft around him. It's now up to him to perform on it. So far, it's been Not a Valve game doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. The damage output mostly coming from him inside of these engagements. Ramujo, for the first time this match, looking to get aggressive up against Zuo God, feeling a little bit of confidence now that his team's benefiting from a sizable 4,000 gold lead. 19 minutes in, and this is indeed the magical Fire Giant time. At the SPL and the SEC level, generally around 18 to 22 minutes is where we see Fire Giant at least start to get looked at, and Husky Gaming has a great draft for it. Maybe doesn't have quite as much burn potential as GSU, but the space creation, be it from Kabrakan dropping his wall or Serial just standing as a human ward, if you would, inside the jungle, they could just create all that space and make sure that this objective falls, even if it is a little bit slower than you'd like.
And I think that's an interesting point, Miff. Space creation as well as space denial. You got double wall in these jungle fights between Not a Valve game and Serial. You think that's got to go a long way in shutting down this Erlong Shen that wants to walk through those spaces. The positioning and the blink, maybe usage of Strongest War God, is going to be the most important in finding some value. Always something comical about that, but not comical if you're Avant-Garde. A beautiful wall, then the collapse is in. Not a Valve game has found another, but Dongavius turns things around. 2 kills now for the Huskies. Make it 3, make it 4, and the Huskies find a 4-kill swing.
Not a Valve game trades out his life for a team fight win cleanly. That damage from Kabrakan is just ridiculous at this point. For some reason, Avant-Garde was the furthest member forward on his team, and Discordia, not really your best foot to have as a front liner, immediately gets cut off there. And 4 members with Fire Giant, it's a complete inverse of what we saw in Game 1. Now Husky Gaming get to test themselves on this siege. Still 3 Tier 2 towers standing between them and the exposed birds of GSU, but they've done a lot here, and that space control is not just inside the jungle. It's not exclusive to there.
Sure.
Serial is going to be a huge deterring factor on these engages.
Absolutely, and Not a Valve game, that's the value we had hoped to see. Look, if you blink in, your glass cannon Kabrakan, you're going to throw up the wall, you're going to do some damage, you are likely going to die at some point in that engagement. It's about finding value before you die, and that is the first time Not a Valve game has really found serious value. There's absolutely been value found, but that's the biggest swing we've seen by Not a Valve game so far here in game number 2. The Huskies not down and out of it just yet. They want to push this one to a game 3. Georgia State will obviously have something to say about it. This is a team that plays on both sides. These are teams that play with immense confidence. So Georgia State now backs against the wall a little bit here, Mifflin. Maybe have to see what their Phoenix defenses start to look like, what their base defense starts to look like, because the Husky Gaming squad is going to be coming for their base shortly.
And the base defense is not awful from GSU. It's not the best in the game. Sure, Discordia can clear out those waves with the Unruly Magic, but it's going to be a little bit harder for her to use it as it is a slightly more stubby ability. I think it really comes down to how well basically uses these Dharmic Pillars to control space and how well Dongavius is able to close the gap with his Piercing Moonlight and find those priority targets.
Yep.
We do see a slight change up in the build here from Not a Valve game. We thought maybe he'd go a little bit more so towards that Bruiser style, and he does so with Ethereal Staff, maybe a little bit more concerned with the magic power that item affords rather than the health, as well as that additional burst from the passive. And the burst damage is not lacking already from him. I mean, we saw what happened to Avant-God there. He got touched once, and that was all it took.
That's all it took. It's so humorous watching a Cabrakan trying to find that stun, the auto attacks just swinging.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hilarious until Avant-God realized one of those was going to connect, and the life was forfeit from that point on. Look at Not a Valve game, the confidence the Cabrakan's playing with. Is it unfounded confidence, though? The damage nearly turns around. Strongest War God able to find the opening kill on the right-hand side, though. Phoenix Siege is happening. A double knock-up in the back line as Apple flies forward. Dongavius taken down by Serial, of all people in this fight. Zuagod able to kite backwards, but Zenners finds the return kill now, and the detonate damage on Avant-God will get Aegis away, and Strongest War God will be able to pull back another. Now basically all alone underneath the Titan, back into the fountain he goes. Cake wants to end this one alongside Serial, but they have second thoughts.
Yeah, there's no way the two members here can clean that one up. Now it's up to see whether or not GSU can get something in return. Serial should be the target here, and he is basically
nice
trying to lock him down, but Cake has damage output, and he's trying to use it.
That's a beautiful stun from Basically, but is it enough? No, it's not. Now Basically, the eye of the Husky Gaming duo that's still left alive, but the Fountain will call and the Fountain will answer for Basically here. The Titan notches just a little bit of damage, but now it's Georgia State with one Phoenix down. Luckily, the Titan's still full HP if you're Georgia State or a Georgia State fan. That's sometimes what you see. A big Titan defense happens, but your Titan's left so low. Husky Gaming are able to get that right side Phoenix. That's a big win here. There's a Fury up on the left-hand side, but not much more to be gained from this FG.
30 seconds left on the buff and then a minute until it respawns. So you imagine we see Husky Gaming at least try and pick up that tier 2 tower on left before they regroup and start up that Fire Giant dance in earnest. These Oni minion waves should be pretty impactful inside of this one. Georgia State at a 10,000 gold deficit are going to struggle to clear them out, especially if Cake decides to drop his lizards in a lane as well. It's going to make it so hard for GSU to step up to this Fire Giant. I'm not sure that they're going to at all. Maybe hedge all their bets on yet again a Titan defense.
Tiamat has started to swing here in this game. It was a slow start. Remember, Cake, what a difference 24 minutes make. Early on in the game, Cake walked on over to the dual lane side of the map and just kind of accepted death, and now
like
top of the damage charts by 3 or so thousand. The Tiamat is going to make an impact, though, Mifflin. Now we finally reached that part of the game where it's not just a team fight damage impact, it's how you play some of those minions. You got Oni fire minions on the right-hand side, Oni minions in the other two lanes. Depending on how you want to use the Tiamat minions, you could find lane pressure all over the map.
You can, and they're not struggling for lane pressure as those Oni minion waves are starting to work their way forward. And take a peek at that damage from Not a Valve game. That was, what, 100% of a Greater Scorpion off one rotation of abilities off the back of Polynomicon as well.
That's not a lesser Scorpion.
Yeah,
that's a Greater
Scorpion. That is a big Scorpion right there. Imagine if that were a Discordia or even the Tsukiyomi at this point isn't really all that tanky. Zuogod has to play on point here. If he ever makes contact with Not a Valve game, he is going to get eviscerated. So keep your eye on this Cabrakan. In the last couple engagements, he did trade out his life, but he was at least able to find value. Sure, he died for no kills last time around, but he buys time to get that right-hand Phoenix. He's always got his team on the mind.
Big fight around the FG occurring now. This is the chance for Georgia State to get back into the game. Zen finds a 3-man knockup. It's the ultimate drop down from Ramujo, and Not a Valve game finds the first kill in the fight. because the Cabrakan has been driving everything, so why not one more team fight now? The chase is on. Strongest War God, bye-bye. Double kill for Cake. 1-2 left alive for Georgia State, and it's the Titan in the eyes of the Huskies.
Avant-Garde on the retreat, got the dreams of his
No
team
way.
on his back, and maybe some autos on his back as well. Bees used, Aegis as well. The fountain's just there, but it does not get in time.
Husky Gaming, it looks like they've survived. It looks like a Game 3 around the corner. Georgia State have not won just yet.
No, GSU gonna have to work hard if they want to be the 4-time champions this time around, Dave. What an absolute barn burner of a game. What was it, at 20 minutes? We were looking at 26 kills or something wild like that. It's just constant action here at the collegiate level, and it is an absolute treat to watch.
And that's all you hope for, right? And after a Game 1 the way it was, I mean, you're thrilled if you're Georgia State or a fan of Georgia State after Game 1. If you're just a fan of good competitive Smite, you want to come back here from Northeastern, and you are nervous in the first minute or two of this game after Georgia State find a 4-kill swing. But the never-die attitude of Northeastern shows up here in game number 2. We got the winner-take-all Game 3 coming up next.
How I love the city of mine. It never gets me down, city of mine. How I love the city of mine. It never gets me down, yeah.
I was born in the city, I was raised on its edges. My pop work is life when it's complex. I found love in its center. If I could live here forever, think it'd be for the better. I love the weather, even though it's fog 24/7. I love the people, this is city. I met all my best friends, and I wanna thank every brick. I wanna thank every entrance to every building that I step in this city of mine. I owe you most my best moments in life. See, I fell in love for the first time in Golden Gate Park. I saw my first rap show at Great American Hall. I used to beg my homies for a ride across the bridge to goof off and spend the whole damn day doing whatever we want. Keith drove us down to Ice Place while we'd roll up a blunt, and me and Jack would get stony, walk around and get lost. Don't think I'll ever truly pay back all I was lucky to get just by walking through the city. No, I'm a small part of this.
City of mine. How I love this city of mine. It never gets me down, city of mine. How I love this city of mine. It never gets me down.
I never really had a place to call my own, so I travel and I roam till I find that. But I'm full of adventure, so I wander and I venture, and it's safe to say that really I don't mind that. I book a flight to try to figure where my mind's at, a spot where I don't spend no money, just some time at. I mix and mingle with the people till I learn a little. I brought some weed and baby, maybe we could burn a little. She said you're funny, I said no, I'm Xavier, then I left. Sun shining, birds chirping, let me take a breath. I'm headed to the city where my chance to make it best. What people like to give a little, then you take the rest. I'm hoping one day maybe I can find a place to rest. I fell in love with life and wonder where it take me next. I like the hustle and bustle, I fell in love with the fashion. I feel the pulse of the city, it's moving me like a passion, and it's mine.
How I love this city of mine. It never gets me down, city of mine. How I love this city of mine. It never gets me down. Me and my hometown, baby, we go way back. All the situations, circumstances, still we don't mind. Steady going on, I dance around the street lights. Hey, I know every street sign, hanging around the block. Like if you are my friend, then you are welcome any moment. Yeah, city of mine. How I love this city of mine. It never gets me down, city of mine. How I love this city of mine. It never gets me down.
We have ourselves a SMITE set on our hands. 1-1 tied up here in the AVGL Collegiate College, there's the same word there, actually, as it turns out. Championship was the second C word that I meant to use there, so being able to move forward, we have Huskies tying it up, Northeastern making sure that Georgia State doesn't just run away with a 2-0, making them put their money where their mouth is. Now it's do or die in game number 3, Gormizer and Agro, but before we get into that, once again, I want to remind you, shop.smiteproleague.com. Right now, I believe, at least for a few more weeks going on, these shirts are going to be available for you. All proceeds will be donated to the Trevor Project. Here, you are going to be able to have it until July 22nd. You've got the SBL, not just the shirt, the hoodie as well, with the Pride colors going across of it, as well as the hi-rez Pride shirt and hoodie that you can get. And again, all proceeds will go to the Trevor Project and helping their really, really good cause, making sure things are going well for all youth in the LGBT plus community. But this is an interesting SMITE set now that we have on our hands. That's a hell of a pivot, right? Like, really good segue for me right there. It's an interesting one to go at it because you watch the first, as David put it, 2 minutes of this. You look down and you're like, all right, well, see in 20 minutes, Georgia State's going to win.
Right.
And of all things, Cabrakan ends up being one of the real big turnaround moments.
Yeah, Not a Valve game was fantastic in this game. He really was able to turn it around and be that engage, sometimes sacrificing himself in order to get the team ahead, but that's what really you want your jungler to do, especially on a pick like this Cabrakan. And then having this Gibalanque to kind of cover up these engages. Cake was fantastic on this Tiamat. A lot of much better play coming from the Huskies this time around. Definitely looked a little bit more comfortable on some of these gods. I think that Cake in particular was a huge difference maker on this Tiamat.
You know, I just thought of a really good segue would have been, speaking of being proud, I bet the Huskies are proud of that play. Either way, they should be, no matter what. Cake looked really good. Like you said, this Tiamat fit in very well. And Not a Valve game, I think, kind of kept things moving for them. I was talking about Ymir walls, but when you did picks and bans, but it was the ult from this Cabrakan. I mean, those walls came in handy more often than not, being able to lock people down. The stun, I mean, it's kind of easy to forget how much damage a Cabrakan does in the blink of an eye until you see it firsthand once again.
It's a lot, and it's all CC at the same time. You know, it's not just damage. It's stun, wall, tremor. It is not easy to handle. And now you're in a weird position if you're Georgia State, because you definitely do not want to end up having to ban this Cabrakan, because then you're in some trouble. You have to ban Tiamat at this point, though I assume they're first pick, so maybe you can try and pick it for yourselves. Definitely going to be difficult, I think, going into picks and bans for this next game.
I really do wonder. Mifflin was actually talking about it as they walked down the hallway past us, but there was that conversation of, do you ban Cabrakan now? Like, is that something that you'd go to the pivot? You can see that GSU has opted in now for that first pick, but do you make changes like that? I mean, if you know their jungler, like the Mercury didn't work out very well for them, the Cabrakan did. Do you let the Tiamat through? Do you ban it? Do you try to pick it yourself now that you're over there? I mean, there's so many different strategies to try and tackle here going into Game 3.
I think you don't ban Tiamat. You try and pick that for yourself. And I think you do ban Cabrakan at this point. I mean, it was such a difference there for Not a Valve game between the Mercury and the Cabrakan. You've been banning things like Sobek. Probably can afford to let that through, as we were talking about, and make sure that this Cabrakan doesn't go through, because whether or not he's just really good on that pick, if your backline isn't playing particularly well around the Cabrakan, you just want to take that out of his hands and not let him get into a rhythm going into a very important, do or die Game 3.
Yeah, especially, like you said, everything on the line here. Your championship, at least for the summer of 2021, on the line here, and all that money that you had mentioned a little bit earlier. So we'll have to see, can GSU bounce back? Can the Huskies keep it up? Game number 3, picks and bans, are going to be coming at you now. A lot of little pivots that can be made here that can maybe open the door for you, like you had said. Maybe you let this Sobek through in order to ban away a Cabrakan. Set, Gilgamesh have been very popular. Soul was banned away last time as well. So there's so many little knobs to tweak. And it looks like Soul, and at least Set so far, are still going to be banned out.
So now, if you're in the side of Husky Gaming, what are you going to ban? Are you going to ban Tiamat and Soul at the same time and end up being in a really tough position? They are. But now, if you're Georgia State, you don't have to ban Gilgamesh, theorizing that's likely the pick that they value the most. And now you've got to make a choice if you're Husky Gaming. Do you want to take that Gilgamesh away, or do you want to let this Giannis through that you've been very scared of? AVGL gets 3 bans tossed his way, but it leaves open the Gilgamesh if Georgia State won it.
And AVGL, I mean, hasn't necessarily had a stellar set, hasn't necessarily had a terrible set, has been exactly the mid laner that you need, but has been willing to play. I mean, just played Discordia, right? Is willing to go a little deeper. So, yeah, absolutely scoop up the Gilgamesh, even if it means that your mid laner is going to be suffering a little bit here. And this will be the first time this set we've gotten to see him. He's been very dominant. We've seen him flex into the solo, not so often. We've seen him flex into support, not that often, mainly as a mainstay jungler. And lately, the jungler's been your 10th pick. Like, he's the last guy you want to lock in. So is this maybe too telegraphed for GSU, or is Gilgamesh just good enough that it doesn't matter?
I think he's good enough that it doesn't matter too much, to be honest with you. I think that he has looked pretty good in solo, the limited times we've seen him there. I'm still not super sold on Gilgamesh in support. But either way, you get a giant ultimate that does a lot of work in team fights. You get dropkick, which is satisfying for you, really scary if you're on the other side. I think I'm fine with the early lock-in here of the Gilg.
You know, it's so weird to think about because we watch so much of it. Like, spectator-wise, you always see it from the top-down perspective, but, like, it's fun to remember when you're in that Gilgamesh ult, like, you just can't see anything. It is so difficult to get vision through there, and that's something that is going to be very cool. Maybe we'll get a third-person perspective through there. Of course, those are always during the eventful team fights. Maybe we don't want the third-person perspective.
Right.
We'll figure it out. Xbalanque, of all things, surprised us in Game 2.
Yep.
Wins Game 2. It's coming back top 3 here now for the Huskies.
Might as well. I mean, they won with it, right? And if they really feel like that Xbalanque ultimate is what allowed not a Valve game to create a lot of space for them, to get into really good points in the team fights, then you might as well stick with it. And I think it does make some sense. If GSU isn't going to try and really punish it in the early game, you've got the same lane matchup up against the Chiron. Why not head back to it?
Well, and you want to talk about Gilgamesh stopping people from seeing. Xbalanque is the OG of, and he does it team-wide. It's not centralized on a point, so something that could come in handy. Sobek, as we had mentioned, unbanned earlier, traded out for that Cabrakan. It's the Serket, the Tsukiyomi, the Mercury, the Scylla that join those bans up at the top, but Sobek makes it through. And Sobek Xbalanque, like, sit back, you know, drink something, a snack. It's 2011, 2012, I guess 2013 Smite is what you're feeling here. Either early, like, alpha, the beta, into, like, that early launch in 2014. This is a duo lane that you might have seen a few times there.
Yeah, Xbalanque was really OP back then, man. The 2-3 combo did so much damage back in the day. Not quite as good as it used to be in that respect, but did get a pretty big buff to Poison Darts not too long ago.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the start of seeing him a little bit more frequently. I think that he worked out really, really well in the last game.
I don't know that there's anything in Smite. There's a lot of satisfying things in Smite, so I guess I really shouldn't say there's anything more satisfying than. But one of the most satisfying is the full shotgun blast when you hit him with all the poison darts. So with a Sobek pluck, that's one of the easiest setups in the game. It's going to be the Agni mid lane. After the Yanis, the Tiamat, the Soul were banned out earlier, Agni's going to be the option over here. Sun Wukong, who we've seen a few times over there in solo, but notably going up against, more than likely, this Kukulkan with an Osiris jungle.
Yeah.
That's not Sino. It's not like a subs coming in all of a sudden. This is just something that they've seen and are going to try to make it work.
I mean, look, Not a Valve game looked the most comfortable whenever he was on a frontliner that could create space. Give him the Osiris. It's still a frontliner that can create space. The big difference, though, is that he doesn't have that one-shot potential. Osiris is going to kill you in a war of attrition. He's going to whittle you down, slow you, speed himself up, stun you, all that kind of stuff over a much longer period of time in comparison to the Cabrakan that was all burst damage right up front. So can he stick on these characters a little bit longer instead of just one-tapping them like he was on the Cabrakan?
Well, they have the chance to turn it around. Xbalanque treated them well in Game 2. Will Osiris treat them as well here in Game 3, or will GSU take another championship? Let's go down to the casters and find out.
Time has officially arrived for both Georgia State and Northeastern. Winner take all. Game number 3 starts right now. My name is Dolson. Mifflin's with me. Doug has been working the camera for us all day and is doing so once again, one final time between these two teams to find us a champion here in the AVGL. And Georgia State, Mifflin, I think they played that first ban phase so well. They get that first pick slot. You force the Huskies into a bit of an awkward spot. Now we'll get Gilgamesh for the first time this set.
And Gilgamesh is so strong, man. That god, talk about space creation and control. I mean, Winds of Shamash in of itself, you can remove every single other ability from this god's kit. Yeah, it's still going to be a pretty decent god. That's how much impact he's going to have in these late game team fights. In particular, Zen's going to have a hard time navigating those. If Cake ever uses the Thunderclap, you better believe Strongest War God's going to be using his best abilities to close gap onto him as well. So I think it's a very similar story to Game 2. Can Husky Gaming withstand this early game oppression from GSU? It's not just Strongest War God trying to utilize that early game pressure, but now basically he's going to be piloting the Ymir, and, well, that god kind of swings with the Frostbite passive.
Yeah, there were some times there in game number 2 where Ymir was kind of one-shotting a couple of the carries of Georgia State. So basically it's like, all right, maybe I want to be doing a little bit of that myself here over in game number 3. Another look at the Jabalanque, though, for Ramujo here this game, and another look at the Chiron for Zuogod. So these two have felt pretty standard in their god pick. Slight pivot for Ramujo there from game 1 to game 2 and 3. What does this matchup start to look like to you, though? If you take the supports out of the mix, and I know that's not really entirely fair, because stuff like this happens. Zuogod gets plucked on through, but he's going to dash away. How does the Chiron, the X-Ball matchup look here in game 3?
In a 1v1, I still just got to favor Chiron, and I'm not talking like 6-4, I'm not talking 7-3. That's like an 8-2 matchup in favor of Chiron. His damage output from a range is so good, with neither one of these guys really going for heavy sustain inside of the builds. Looks like it's going to be Transcendence as the pickup for both Ramujo and Zuogod. Means that only one of them is going to have any form of healing, really, outside of this Death Toll coming through from Ramujo, and it's going to be Chiron from his passive. He's got Death Immunity inside the kit, so if these fights come down to a nail-biter, well, you're going to favor Chiron there as well. It's an interesting decision from Ramujo to keep going toward this unorthodox hunter. I gotta think it's got a lot to do with that global presence in the ult.
It's a pluck back onto basically now to continue to find pressure for the Huskies over in the duo lane, but basically we'll be able to walk away. It's been the junglers from game 1 to game 2, and you imagine here in game 3 that have made so much of the difference. Not a Valve game goes huge in game number 2 on the Cabrakan, and now picks up Osiris here in game number 3, and Mannequin as the starter item there for the Husky Gaming jungler. Not a Valve game, maybe looking to find some of that extra auto attack boosted damage early on here.
Yeah, back when Mannequin Scepter first came out, Osiris was the first god a lot of people were looking at as, wow, he's going to mess us up with that. He just hits us with the slow once, and then all of a sudden my HP bar is gone. But as the meta has evolved here in Season 8, we've started to realize that Mannequin Scepter falls off very quickly. Around level 7, level 8, that item loses a lot of its value. You're not getting the sustain from Bumbasphere. You're not evolving it into something like Protector of the Jungle to get that percentage statistics for you. So not a Valve game. Kind of on a timer here if he wants to find value from his starter, and already the clock's ticking away. He's got 3 levels left, I'd say.
Halfway there.
Yeah.
It's already almost there, but once you get to that level 5 mark, Lord of the Afterlife, big engage tool for not a Valve game. And so that's something to keep your eyes on, as both junglers have reached that level 4 point. Same for Strongest War God. Once the ultimate there for the Gilgamesh is ready to go, you imagine you'd see a little bit more pressure here. It could be a 2 versus 3 collapse. As not a Valve game is over here on the left-hand side. You imagine if there was a Lord of the Afterlife, he's immediately following in. But look at this. The Taiko drums have gotten Strongest War God low, basically down low as well. But they'll be able to limp away from this fight. Early aggression, though, from Northeastern, trying to find a pick.
Yeah, playing around this Raijin. I mean, the second he ticks over to level 5, Thunderclaps aggressively. Surprised to see him. I like to go for the damage stance inside of the ultimate instead of trying to taunt Strongest War God back in or something along those lines. Doesn't have any traditional CC immunity inside of his kit, and also going for the blink in the first slot means that really he would have been very susceptible to it, but instead just not quite able to find that damage.
We expect to see this from a Sobek just walking into that mid lane, but how about this? Some pressure over into a Lord of the Afterlife. Gets you. Zuogod makes his way beneath his tier 1 tower, but that is where he will fall. And now the Northeastern Huskies find themselves on the board here in game number 3. And who else but the junglers getting it started?
700 gold deficit is the reward for their troubles there. And they also strip away the beads from this Chiron. So Zuogod going to have to play very safe for the next couple of minutes. I've got to imagine not a Valve game. Realizing that those beads are expended, going to try and walk on over and do the exact same thing yet again.
So it's a great start now for the Huskies, and we haven't seen them. Now, in Game 2, they did capitalize on a lead that they were able to build up for themselves, but it's been kind of fighting from behind in the early, in Game 2's case, very early. And so now it's keeping that ball rolling on a pick. That's maybe... I'm going to catch myself here. Is Osiris in the jungle more standard than Cabrakan out of the jungle, you think? Because I was about to say, in a pick that's more standard out of the jungle for not a Valve game in the Osiris. But I don't know if that's true.
Well, I think there's a very nuanced discussion to be had here, Dave, because there's legitimate.
You and I are such nuanced individuals.
We're the right people to have this. I think we're uniquely qualified to have it. There's only one player in all of SMITE competitive that is playing Osiris jungle consistently. Maybe two. I'm thinking Sino and Scary D. Who's playing Cabrakan? Cherio, and he's a coach now, so I think you could go ahead and feel confident in saying that Osiris is a little bit more standard.
That's on me for ever distrusting my own first instincts, right? I would argue that you've seen Osiris in the jungle a little bit more recently than we've seen Cabrakan out of the jungle. So I'll finish that statement now on something a bit more standard. In this Osiris, Lord of the Afterlife played a great role in closing that gap there for first blood. But Georgia State, not a team to shy away from the fight, and they're going to do so here in the mid lane. Cake backing away with the Taiko drums, but it's the fear that gets used. Not much damage returned in on the strongest War God, who kicks Not a Valve Game back against the wall. Lord of the Afterlife gets used to keep Not a Valve Game in the fight a little bit longer, and he'll do one better. Zuo God, though, snipes through the walls to turn things back into a 1-for-1. Cake has to use the beads as a pluck. Connects onto Avant-God, who will dash away. Zuo God with the double kill. This is a big swing here as Georgia State finds 3.
Just an early rotation from GSU's Hunter was not quite matched up by Remugio and turns that engagement around. Was looking like it was going to be a clean win for Husky Gaming, but the ultimate over the wall from the Chiron turns the fight, and then once he shows up in earnest, it was clean pickings from there. Now 3-2 stands the slash line at the top of your screen, and what was 700 gold in favor of Husky Gaming just a moment ago has been completely removed. It's a dead even match from here on out. Maybe slight experience lead for the ADC on the order side.
And now we've seen this in maybe all 3 games, if my memory serves me properly. That's a pretty short memory if I can't
It's
even
been less than like an
hour
hour and a half.
It's been like an hour and 15 minutes. So much action has happened there, Myth. But Zuo God picking up an early multi-kill, an early kill in some of these lanes. The Chiron, except for game number 2, has really been able to expand upon that. So I think Georgia State are very happy to find that amount of pressure over there in the dual lane. What could compound into more pressure over there in the dual lane, though a couple kills 1 minute into the game wasn't enough to get it done in game 1. So there's always that sense of doubt maybe that the Huskies have enough fight back to take one away from the overwhelming favorites here in Georgia State. It's the Oracles that might get fought over here. As anything is getting fought over between these two teams, they like to scrap, that's for sure. Basically runs into some vines, will use the shards of ice. That'll keep him alive a little bit longer. Avant-God returns some damage onto Cake. Winds of Shamash falls down. Strongest War God into the fray as the lights go out, and thanks to Remugio, Husky Gaming right back onto the front foot, and who else but Not a Valve Game picks up the kill.
Yeah, Strongest War God walks in with the ultimate, and his team said, hey, we're not looking for that engagement. Instead, they get baited into it. Chiron rotates again and picks up the kill. Zuo God doing it all for his team here. Puts Not a Valve Game in the dirt. Husky Gaming thought they had maybe gotten away with that for free, but they don't even get the Oracle. Zuo God's on top of that, too.
Right, just these return kills from this Chiron that have kept Georgia State in a place of contention. Husky Gaming have started up the fights in Georgia State, particularly Zuo God. Seems like he's been finishing
this
it
guy's
here.
crazy.
This would be something from Cake, wouldn't it? Both mid laners quite low here. Cake has to thunder crash away. The minions might nearly get things done here. Avant-Garde has a channel of the ultimate left available, but Cake will survive, and so Avant-Garde on the other side.
Gotta think of it, had Avant-Garde just dashed aggressively once Cake started channeling that first ability, he would have likely picked up the kill. But this is exactly what I was talking about last time around, Dave. These guys are just looking for 1v1s. Both teams chose violence.
I did. Now some more violence happening over around the blue buff. It's an overextension on the blink, and it's a nice knock-up from Zen.
Good freeze.
But an up-down and a freeze from basically will set up the remainder of this fight. Is there enough damage, though? It's being returned around onto Georgia State as Husky Gaming juggle around the aggro to keep themselves in the fight, but Dong Avius on the Sun Wukong. He's got the sustain, but it's a great pluck back from Serial to disengage his solo laner.
Now Serial left alone, has to use the ultimate for the escape, but the hero's leap gonna pick up this kill. Not a Valve Game, still has the ultimate available, so can look to get involved again, but Cake's got the damage.
Oh, he sure does, and it's basically who eats it now over the wall. It's an up-down from Not a Valve Game to reconnect in onto this fight, and it's a thunder crash in, and Cake's got a double kill, could be 3. if the range is there, there's no ultimate, no Thunder Crash, no chance for the chase. As Dungavius will survive over here in the duo lane. Some 1v1s happening, and Zuogod will win it with ease.
Yeah, maybe don't step to the 3-1 Chiron, now 4-1, up against Ramujo, who falls down for the first time here in Game 3. Hey, look, he got the purple buff. Congratulations. Cost him his life, though. Ramujo, a little bit of an overstep on that duo side. And Zuogod looking to try and invade this purple buff, but it is not up just quite yet. So instead, he's just going to have to settle for the kill. I'm sure he's feeling fine with that.
And it's another example of, we saw this in Game 1. Now over here again in Game 3, Cake is going to be on this Raijin with at least a 1 level, sometimes 2 level lead over AVGL. 3-1-2. Charon's coin, not the Divine Ruin start, but still cheap, still early. And so much of this game you feel like Myth flows through, yet again, the 1-2 punch of Not a Valve Game and Cake.
Yeah, they've been doing a lot for their squad so far, but Not a Valve Game has not found that same level of presence here in Game 3 that we saw in Game 2. Aggro brought it up briefly on the desk, saying that maybe Not a Valve Game goes towards his Osiris just for that frontline presence, but he is going to be lacking a lot of that damage output, and he isn't even going tanky this time around. It's the Stone Cutting Sword mass start for this Osiris. He's going to do a lot of consistent damage. If he's able to land 4, 5, 6 auto attacks, he's going to shred whoever he makes contact with, but doing so is a little bit easier said than done.
Greater Scorpion started up and taken down by Georgia State. Husky Gaming lurking. Just seeing if they can catch somebody out from Georgia State here. There's a pluck awaiting around the wings if anyone from Georgia State oversteps, and I think worth giving Serial a bit of a shout out here as well. 1, 2, and 3, so 4 of the 6 kills have been affected by the Sobek. A couple instances as well where those plucks have kind of disengaged fights, even outside of the engage that it's provided. Now, Strongest War God uses the ultimate as a chase utility over onto Ramujo, who will back away, drops the ultimate himself. Not a Valve Game, chopping away basically here, but a bit of a cleanse will keep the Ymir alive.
That is a blink and ult trade from Strongest War God just to pick up Ramujo's beads. So once you have that cooldown to find value, you have to rotate back in, basically trying to do exactly that, but basically loses his life for the effort.
Oh, and he will, and it's Serial who picks this one up. Now look at the envelopment that Georgia State is bringing to the table. Husky Gaming collapsed in upon by Georgia State, but they're bypassing the front line. They found their way into the back line. Ramujo eats way too much damage here, has to kite back beneath the Tier 1 tower, but AVGL will finish off the damage. Now Cake with the Taiko drums, taunts Dungavius right back into range, and Cake will add another.
Man, Cake playing with fire there. The Jinku Bang almost finishing off that kill, but that is a good trade for him. Cake able to at least get something in exchange for his ADC's life. But these fights, man, are constant and they're everywhere. It's hard to decide where these teams are going to go next because I'm not sure they're quite certain of it either. Sure, we've been seeing fights around this duo hand side, but nobody's looked at the Gold Fury just yet, and instead it's all been around the engagement itself. Diving that tower, interesting decision, works out for him this time around, but it is a wash at the end of the day. So far, though, Husky Gaming got themselves a nice little gold lead.
I am curious, Miff, it's something we brought up, and then, of course, a fight cut us off there, where this is a similar build, except physical, obviously, for Not a Valve Game, but it was a starter item into a damaging item in boots, and then the mask later on. When we've seen the fighter's mask, it feels like it's been just a bit of time buying from the solo laner to decide what starter item they want a little bit later on. But Not a Valve Game in Game 2 finished off the mask. Obviously going to have to do something with it here, as there's already been a starter item picked up. Is that still a path that makes some sense? Not just using it as buying some time, but fully building into that next tier of mask.
On this Osiris, I'm pretty sure he's going to end up selling it, basically caught out in the exact same position that he was last time around, trying to escape the lurking in the waters, but no way.
There you go. Plenty of slows in, and Cake is on a rampage. The Northeastern Huskies keep the ball rolling. A 1,000 gold lead for the Chaos side. Could get worse here as the Gold Fury starts to get looked at. Is a chance in for a collapse, but it's going to have to be a miracle steal here. The ultimate drops down, and the ultimate just a bit late from Zuogod, and Husky Gaming are able to pull themselves a little bit further ahead.
I can't even blame Zuogod for being that slow. I was not expecting Gold Fury to fall as quickly as it did there, but that's that Stone Cutting Sword build coming through from Not a Valve Game, just shredding the defense of the objective. And now Husky Gaming, with this opportunity, are going to go ahead and try and chip away the other neutral objective, opposite side of the map, and Pyromancer shredding just as fast.
My God, it is going down quickly, isn't it? Husky Gaming finding the neutral objectives, and that's giving them the advantage they need. But look at this, Dungavius still wants to breathe some life back into this Georgia State team here. Somersault Cloud will not be enough to collapse back in on a not a Valve game who's trying to back beneath the tier 2 tower here. Georgia State very swift on their collapse here on the right-hand side, looking for a pick, looking for an overstay, but they'll find neither.
Yeah, Husky was able to get out of dodge as quickly as possible, and now with no neutral objectives left on the map, there's not much left to farm. But look at GSU setting up an ambush here on the right-hand side. If Serial decides to step forward and clear that wave, he would have lost his life. Luckily, red buff spawns at the exact same time, and that's a little bit more enticing to go split that up with Cake.
I don't think I've ever heard somebody literally quote the set up an ambush here, Myth, but you just...
yeah, VVVA.
Right, yeah, VVVA. You did it right in front of me. Set up an ambush here, says Myth, and you imagine there were some VVVAs being used by Georgia State there. Not to find, though, and maybe it's a right target. You're looking for Cake here out of the mid lane. You have got to slow this Raijin down. 5-1-3. What a way for Cake to show up in a do-or-die game up against the favorites here in Georgia State. If this Raijin is able to continue to operate in the way that Cake has, it is going to be, well, I was going to say a long day for Georgia State, but it might be short here because Husky Gaming absolutely in control of things. Player damage, not all the way up at the top. Zuagod has been winning a lot of those 1v1s, but still in that build. You got Rada Tahuti, you got Charon's Coin online. Cake is going to be swinging.
He really will be, man. My heart goes out to AVGL, who has, to this point, played the lane incredibly well. 1-0-5, participating in 6 out of 7 kills for his team. Has not died to Cake a single time, but Cake 5-1-3 just has more kills to his name this time around and has established himself a lead for it. If I'm AVGL, I'm like, guys, just maybe stop dying to this guy. I'm trying to keep up, but he's just farming too quick.
Farming too well. It's a 3,000 gold lead for the Huskies here. It's Fire Giant, so we're 16 and a half minutes in, still a couple minutes off of when you would normally see FG start. But we were so taken aback by how fast the Fury went down. Pyromancer went down quickly after that. Fire Giant would fall just as quickly as well. Not a Valve game, attempting to disengage from this fight, and will do so successfully. But this is where we've seen the Huskies thrive. The second wind in the fight gets used. But this time, Georgia State maybe still feeling a little bit better off. It's a disengage, but it's a re-engage from Dung Avius in the mid lane. Cake Thunder crashes away, and everyone on the map stays alive.
Unfortunate Jinku Bang from Dung Avius. You gotta hit those. You gotta know the Aegis timers at this level of play, and unfortunately does not quite have it there, so Cake walks out for free. That would have been a huge bounty kill for the solo laner of GSU, and being level 16, he would have been dead for an incredibly long time. Could have potentially opened up the door towards looking maybe at this tier 1 tower in mid, or even Fire Giant itself as we're starting to approach that time of the game. But not all is lost for GSU fans. They were at least able to strip away the beads from Not a Valve game. They get both relics off of the Raijin as well, so that's going to help them out a lot once this engagement starts up in earnest.
Yeah, getting those relics down, very important for Georgia State, and the re-engage that could happen moving forward. We haven't really talked about the Sun Wukong all that much here recently. Soul Eater into Void Shield, pretty standard, bit of a bruiser type build there from Dung Avius. And maybe see more of the same as the build continues to roll on out here. But maybe one of the largest threats to Cake is the Sun Wukong, the ability to close that gap. Somersault Cloud, re-engage, even if a Thunder Crash disengages Cake from the fight. And so you need to see some more of that, I think. What we saw there in the mid lane, kind of on replay for Georgia State. This Sun Wukong making the Raijin uncomfortable.
Yeah, Sun Wukong has a nasty matchup into this Raijin. Generally, once warriors start to dive deep onto Raijin, he uses the Taiko Drum, utilizes the Fear, just to create a little bit of space for himself. But with the Somersault Cloud, able to advance on the map with a CC immunity while you're running up, means that really there's not great disengage tools for this Raijin. It's up to Serial and Not a Valve game to create that space and make sure that Cake is able to operate. And so far, we've seen Serial do it pretty consistently, plucking people off, using the Tail Whip for peel as well, even at times using that ultimate just for the slow to make sure his team is able to reposition. But we've seen now that just one opportunity is all it takes for Dung Avius to really put the kibosh to damage.
Are you saying one shot, one opportunity?
That's, yeah.
To seize everything you ever wanted? One moment?
Stop. You're going to get us...
Just capture it, or just let it slip.
Why's it get in trouble?
You're right. Oh, wait, you're absolutely right. Oh, no. I'm sorry. It's a freeze on the back line. A double freeze to set things up here from basically a Not a Valve game. Will die to AVGL. This is the moment Georgia State have been waiting for. This is the fight they've looked for. It's a double kill for Avant-Garde. Now Zen left all alone, and basically we'll add another deicide around the corner, and it's a triple kill and a deicide for Georgia State.
Gold Fury, or Primal Fury rather, going to go their way as well. Just a spear-headed composition. Dongavius said, I'm sick of it. Stop peeling me. I'm going to walk at your back line, and the rest of GSU rallies behind him to pick themselves up their first clean engagement so far this game. I was so worried about getting DMCA'd there that maybe we lost the narrative a little bit, but GSU, razor focus, going to keep up that objective style of play and take out a Tier 1 tower as well. Maybe in mid, 2 Tier 1s for their efforts.
No, that's Eminem. Why'd you say DMC? What?
Oh, DMCA.
Oh, the A on the L. I
There you
missed
go,
the
Buck.
Oh,
There it
got it. We got it there. Look, Georgia State now have ripped this game right back into their control, and so much of it we hinged for the Huskies on, can you keep Cake alive? The answer was no in that previous fight, and then things just started to snowball out of control. Zuo poured out the damage. And now, we were talking about how Avant-Garde was feeling kind of bad. We're like, look, guys, like, just stop dying to the Raijin. How things have changed. It was a 1 to 2 level differential, now back to dead even. 4-0-7 on this Agni. This is the type of game that Georgia State feels so comfortable, and they've gotten a great lead here. They've gotten the ability. Now that you have the ability to fight in comfortably, you're not fighting at a deficit, and you want to be aggressive like these guys do. This is time for caution, time for worry if you're Northeastern.
But luckily for Northeastern, one big tool that was not available in that last team fight, where both of the relics for Cake now has both beads and Aegis available.
Oh man, blink, freeze, but a disengage from not a Valve game. Winds of Shamash provide just a bit of slow here. Serial with a nice tail whip, and look at Cake kiting backwards. The Taiko drums slow down the engagement from everyone but Dongavius, who goes up into the somersault cloud here, and some siege damage rolling on over from Avant-Garde will slow down the Huskies once more. Georgia State peel back. Eyes on the fire, but instead it's the pyro being looked at.
GSU is so healthy here, even though they're the ones on the offensive. Husky Gaming was not able to return any of that damage. They have to stick around, Husky Gaming that is, just to make sure that this Fire Giant isn't getting pulled out. They step up, they see that there's no effects through the Fog of War, so they know they can reset as well. I'm surprised to see GSU let off the gas pedal there. They'd already stripped away the Aegis from Cake. Serial was dropped low as well. Gotta think that maybe that's a missed opportunity to look at the Giant.
Georgia State feeling comfortable now, feeling the chance to close out yet another AVGL final win. And in a moment like that, you want to cross your T's, you want to dot your I's, you want to make sure that everything looks perfect and your chances are absolutely maximized here. What a difference I think the solo lane has made here in this game as well. Zen has just not found that value. Just 0-1-0, 1-1-6 on the other side for Dongavius. The Sun Wukong, it's kind of changed the face of this game since the solo laners have been involved. And I think, Miff, a 3-level discrepancy here from Zen, while in a nice world says, all right, he can't get any further ahead, just shows, I think, a difference in impact.
Yeah, Dongavius has been the dictator of the pace of this game, and last time around it was not a Valve game on the Cabrakan. It's just been a little bit of frontline diff here between the matches of this set. This time around, GSU benefiting from it, but you already hit on the point. Can't get any stronger, can Dongavius, who's already ticked over to level 20. But
get one more tier in that item.
Yeah, it might be a Heartseeker pickup. A little bit late in the game to pick up Transcendence. He wants to burst whoever he touches.
He'll be a little stronger once he's got that one. Not a Valve game. Blinks in, but he's alone, and he will die. And it's Avant-Garde on a rampage now. Georgia State now have a one-man advantage, and it's an important man advantage here around this FG. The wall goes up from basically, doesn't trap anyone in. Serial's on the back line, but a pluck connecting from that range will just disengage the carry that you're able to find, and so Serial has to rejoin the rest of the team here. Miff, last time we were here, Georgia State were cautious. We'll see if they go towards the FG this time.
Looked like to me, not a Valve game, was just a little bit too over-eager to get into that Fire Giant. Maybe thought it was lower than it was. Winds of Shamash is dropped. Cake forces to use the beads and the Thunderclap out.
Big fight now for Georgia State. A pluck off to the side will disengage the fight once more as Husky Gaming back away beneath their Tier 2 tower. It's an obvious game plan from this point on from Georgia State. Let's extend forward, see if we can find a pick, and then go back towards the FG. But good ward coverage from Northeastern is maybe preventing that. They're able to sense exactly where Georgia State are.
Yeah, GSU is going to want to pick up some more sentries once they return back to base. Missed an opportunity to push their lead while Not a Valve game was dead. And that's what, the third time this set so far that Not a Valve game has blinked in and maybe thought he was a little bit tankier than he was, lost his life. And so far, He's not picking up any tankiness this game either. Nope. It's a Crusher in the late game. He's got Stone Cutting Sword, the Mask, going into the Throwing Dagger as well. Just a very squishy build from this Osiris. If you can find someone isolated and take a 1v1, sure. I'm not sure there's anyone on GSU that wants that fight, but so far GSU's been deathballed up.
Right, it has not happened at all this game outside of the first couple of minutes for Northeastern. Not a Valve game is slowed down for sure. And then we've talked about some of the decline maybe of the mannequins as the game goes on. We'll see if that, or when that maybe, gets upgraded. Still a couple of levels to go before Not a Valve game is able to do so. We'll take a quick pause here on our end before we resume the grand finale of the AVGL Finals. What's that?
Yeah, we need that break.
Yeah, we do need a break. These guys have been brawling, haven't they?
Just constantly. What are we at, like 120 kills in the set so far, or something crazy like that?
That's pretty ridiculous, right?
There's
like,
no way.
Like
There's no way. There's like
40 kills for
we're averaging at least 30 kills a game. Maybe we're approaching 100.
Which is still pretty wild, I think,
nuts.
in a best of 3, right? 30 kills a game for 3 straight games.
Considering they're all 20 minutes.
There's something here, right? These are all very short games with very high kills. And I think that's kind of what I was referencing, where Georgia State, it almost feels like they're uncomfortable. Like their play style is so aggressive, so in your face as we jump back in to game number 3. And they never really stopped that. It feels like even if Georgia State's behind, they're still playing that play style, as the Oni Fury will not get stolen away by Not a Valve game. So now that Georgia State's back in the driver's seat, they can continue to play the way they have, but just in a little bit more of a comfortable position. So, Fury taken down here. Fire Giant not yet looked at. Well, looked at, but not yet completed by Georgia State. It's a full 5v5, maybe looming large here. Do you have to take it, though, if you're the Huskies?
You don't have to, but I think that it is a good opportunity to. You're only about 3,000 to 4,000 gold down at this point. Fire Giant, I like to equate to about 10,000.
Is it their one shot?
So this is not their one shot. Even if they lose the fight and Fire Giant goes the way of GSU, there's still 3 Tier 2 towers standing. We'll save your Eminem reference for a little bit later on in the match here.
Course, I think.
But 25 minutes in, this is one of the longest games as of yet. Very calculated pace from both of these squads so far, especially around the Fire Giant in particular. Georgia State really is waiting to find that great opportunity, and maybe this is it. They start it, and it's burning fast.
Georgia State think the opportunity has arrived now. Fire Giant down, beneath really half fast. HP, beneath a third HP. Into the back line goes Dongavius, but is he bitten off too much? Georgia State take down the FG. Zen controlling the back line, but control no longer as Zuogod turns around to the kill. He'll have to dash away. It's Not a Valve game. Will have the damage here, but it's a Thunder Crash aggressively from Cake. Cake needs to turn this fight around. Zuogod, though, has the damage there. Georgia State grabs 3, but it's the FG on over to GSU as well. Avant-Garde with the double kill. Serial, the last left alive, and you got to imagine Georgia State on the precipice of winning the AVGL.
Just going to try and do their best to pick out Serial here. Not a great opportunity to find that kill. CC's there, but not enough follow-up damage. Seems like GSU wants to work their way through mid. They've already got minions up on the left-hand side.
Zen and 15.
Could be an opportunity to look towards the Phoenix. Zen and 15. Yeah, I think at best we're looking at a mid-Phoenix, and that's about it before the reset.
Luckily, those towers still alive. It has not been the case in previous games, game number 1 notably here in this set. Georgia State make their way into the mid lane. Phoenix Zen is up as we speak. 15 seconds on Ramujo, 10 seconds on Not a Valve game, and that is enough to make Georgia State turn tail, head on out. And I think that's the right decision here, Miff. You got a Tier 2 in left, Tier 2 in right. Still a chance now to work down some extra gold, work down that base just a little bit further. You were really rolling the dice there if you went for it.
You really are. Now Husky Gaming going to have to utilize their composition on base defense, and this might be one of their weaker drafts to do so. Osiris is going to really struggle to find those targets once these fights simplify into these 5v5s. Zen's already been struggling to create the space for Cake, who has been the target of what is essentially a 5-man dive at this point. Basically, Zuogod, Avant-God, strongest War God, a lot of gods on this team, and Dongavius have been W-keying as hard as they can towards this Raijin. Going to be a little bit easier to do so when there's not as much space to fall back towards inside your own base. But now, they can at least try and put up a soft defense on these Tier 2s. I'm talking incredibly soft. If anyone loses their life to defend a Tier 2 tower, they're essentially forfeiting the game. Husky Gaming, we're demanding excellence and perfection from you if you want to walk home champions.
Now, we've talked about the ebbs and flows of the jungle here, and the Osiris for Not a Valve game has maybe not hit the mark. It's been tough to keep pace. Maybe not even so much with the strongest War God has done, but just all of Georgia State. We wondered what the mannequin would turn into. It's the mannequin Hidden Blade here, Mifflin. So you've got to not take damage for, I think, 5 seconds is the passive. But then if you're able to find damage onto an enemy. They do take a big burst of physical damage on the end of it, but it's about getting that condition underneath your own Phoenix that's going to be tough to find.
Yeah, he's going to play around the side, blink forward, and use a sickle. That's the whole strategy here. And if he's lucky,
And
it's
there's
going to be
an
on
oboe on the other
avant
side.
garde. Yeah, oboe is going to be really hard to work through. That's actually a really sick call out there, Dave. Best of luck
Chair
to you
two,
on
baby!
Not a Valve game. That's
Let's
going to
go.
be hard to work through.
Chair 2, Dave. Oh, you want to just swap? You want to take the...
You want me to take the fight? Here they go, diving the Phoenix. Not quite just yet. Still waiting. Chair 2 not doing air as he should be.
I'll give you a breath there, Mifflin, as Georgia State do work in towards the left-hand side. This is the moment Georgia State have been dreaming of yet again to find themselves atop of the AVGL world. Not a Valve game over there in the mid lane. He's left the rest of his team. He'll have to find his way back into this fight. Ramujo nearly deleted off the map, and he will be as Dongavius completes the dive. Cake has kited backwards, returned around 1 kill here, and Dongavius will say, no way, not today. Double kill for the Sun Wukong. Not a Valve game. Chases down Avant God, but at what cost? Husky Gaming, they're dwindling here as Serial loses most of his HP. It's a double kill for Zuo God. 3 left alive for Georgia State. Zen, the last one on the map for the Huskies.
Fireman and Wave starting to work their way down mid. Zen
That'll do
just
it.
buying a little bit of time, and that's all he does. Zuo God with the triple, and it's going to be GSU walking home champions.
D aside for Georgia State. What a way to end it. They turn around game number 3. They take the win, and Georgia State University atop the AVGL once again.
What is that? 3 AVGL championships?
They're
and
the
then
Dr.
NACE.
Disrespects of the AVGL.
That is a lot of winning. These guys are very consistent. Got targets on their back in the coming years. Georgia State, hard to beat. Georgia also the home of hi-rez. Maybe they got that home turf advantage.
I mean, I got to give a shout out to the University of Georgia, right? Just kidding. I can't do that. Not between these two teams. Georgia State, congrats to them once again, champions of the AVGL. I don't know about the 6'8" frame or the 37-inch vertical leap, but they've got more rings than Dr. Disrespect at this point. Congrats to Georgia State University. Hats off to Northeastern to a game well played, but it's GSU champions once again. The desk will break this one down right after this.
the back. I said pull up, I said pull up, I said pull up, I said pull up. Yeah. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Yeah. We get to it, got it stocked up. Popped up, got her hand all rocked up. Like 1 carat, 2 carat, more carats. She look carrots like a bunny, got her hops up. Don't care for designer, got her own drip. Don't care for the phones, got her own whip. Don't care for the scenes, take her own trip. Guarantee it's for a bag and she walking. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bag when she walk. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bag when she walk. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Sweet Jesus, I just up the price for the features. I can see the fakes and the leeches. I been getting to it since a fetus. Pull up at the spot, tire squeal. Got her in my passenger, I told her grab the wheel. Friends hating, told her get out, Jordan Peele. But she rocks with me cause she real, for real. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. Girl, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. She get to the cash when she walk. She look like a bad when she walk. She get to the cash.
Well, after a small slip-up in the fall of 2020, granted, all of us had a small slip-up in the fall of 2020, let's be honest, being able to pull it right back in their favor. Georgia State, once again, standing on top of Collegiate SMITE. Aggro, they do it in a pretty stellar fashion at that. I mean, that game, Zuogod looked really good. AVGL looks really good. I mean, the whole team starts to fire on all cylinders. But you have to give credit over to the Huskies because they are punching back every chance they get.
Yeah, much closer game 3. Definitely a lot more back and forth in that one. But ultimately, I think the experience of Georgia State really showed in this one, knowing that, hey, you know, it's all on the line in this game. And we've been in situations like this before, can lean on that type of experience. Of course, Zuogod was phenomenal on this Chiron pick. How many rotations to mid did he end up getting paid on? This was huge. He gets a double kill on that rotation. Consistently felt like he was able to find his way in to these fights at the right angle in the early to mid game, and that's such an advantage to have a hunter who's willing to make those rotations and isn't doing them wastefully, isn't just coming over and leeching some farm, missing some farm of their own over on their side of the map. Making meaningful rotations over in the early to mid game can set you up for a really easy mid game, and that's exactly what Zuogod did.
And AVGL, I mean, you have to remember this is an Agni pick that was, I mean, he was banned out. I mean, there were 3 mid bans. There was the Soul,
4.
Granted, Tiamat Yanis that technically come through. Yeah, 4 if you want to add in the Scylla. So much weight that I think comes onto this pick to, I would say to do well, not necessarily what 7-1, which is what they ended up doing towards the end of it. This definitely fit in well with the team comp.
Very well, very good performance. I mean, anytime you're getting 4 gods banned and a 5th taken away in the top 2 in that Raijin, if you can even have a middling performance, you've done your job in terms of a competitive game. But for AVGL to come out and go 7-1, backline combines to go 15-3 in this game. That's not, you're going to win a lot of games where that happens first and foremost, but it's also a testament to the front line. I thought Dungavius looked really good, basically, and Strongest War God, of course, as well. Anytime your backline's able to put out that much damage and suffer that few deaths, it means that your front line's probably doing a pretty good job.
Doing a whole lot of work there. I have to give some credit to Cake. First off, I love the font of the E specifically, but also 20,000 damage, like just a little bit technically off of what AVGL was able to put up. So a little bit coming from the Raijin on the other side, but you could see that the rest of them didn't quite hold it up. I mean, Strongest War God as well as Dungavius, like also up there in terms of their presence, the pressure they put on there. You could see the freezes, the walls that come through, and I got it during the break, like right as we got here. I was told 102 total kills throughout that entire set.
There you go.
So they were looking for blood. Of course, You watch Game 1, it was a little more one-sided. Game 2, maybe a little more favored toward Northeastern. But here, it's all Georgia State University. 2-1 in their semis and their finals, but otherwise, well, I guess there's only one more set on here. 2-0 for them there earlier against the University of Kentucky. Much more difficult, it feels like, for them to have gotten here, but this has been a team that has done it pretty regularly to the point where, I mean, the cast were saying a few more years, they need to be graduating soon. I don't know. I need to do the math on when I first saw this roster, but it feels like they have definitely been able to find a good group together and really dominate here in the collegiate scene.
Surely the reign of terror will be over soon. You know, the rest of the collegiate
Everyone's
SMITE
just watching
league.
the timer.
Yeah, exactly. Waiting for graduation. It's like when the star quarterbacks in your conference, you're like, well, you can only be here for so long. This team can only be here for so long is the good news for the rest of the
Joke's
AVGL
on you,
competitors.
grad school. I don't know if that's how it works. I'm
No
not
clue.
sure.
Yeah, not sure. Maybe they can bring in a ringer or something like that. You know, surely Dave could just sign up for Georgia State classes and then start playing for them, right? Well,
Oh, man.
who would say no?
Ganesh would become a must ban. It would become something absolutely
Instantly.
devastating. Then again, right now, this team just seems to have too much to ban. But once again, congratulations there to Georgia State University on the victory here in the summer of 2021. And while I've got you all here, I want to talk a little bit about, well, the SBL, because not only are we back tomorrow, there's actually some merch that you can get available for a little bit, like 3 more weeks, I think is exactly the number. It was July 22nd, I believe was the exact date. Shop.smiteproleague.com. All proceeds from the Pride merch get donated to the Trevor Project. So go ahead and get yours now. We just got our shirts a little bit ago. I didn't change into it. I'm going to wear it probably later on broadcast this weekend. But you can get either a shirt, a hoodie, and as well focusing on the SBL or hi-rez as a whole, throwing out the Roco logo, the Paladin's crystal is in there. I kind of want one of those as well. I might go and buy one because all the proceeds, once again, will be going to the Trevor Project. So it's worthwhile. You get to rep Pride, you get to rep the SBL, but you also get to donate to a good cause all in one go. And because of that, why would we be talking about this? Well, the SBL, guess what? It's tomorrow. We're coming back, Phase 2, 1 p.m. Make sure you're here as we kick it all off. The final hurrah to the first half of Season 8. We'll see you there.
Peach it.